Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we will continue our journey of What If Deku Became a Great Scientist Part 5. Before we start, please like, share, subscribe, and comment in the comment section what you want next. CH79, staking your claim. Hey, you gonna be alright darling? Pamela asked Egon as the two of them stood behind a curtain where the world meeting of leaders was taking place. Egon breathed deeply and answered, "Of course I am. I'm nervous, sweating, cold, and ready to piss myself. But I have to do this no matter what. I've got to stand my ground and let my thoughts be known." He clenched his fist into balls and told her, with a determined tone, "If I don't, then these government officials will just continue to walk all over our creation." "Our creation?" Pamela asked him back. Egon rolled his eyes at her tone and told her, "Oh, come off it, Pamela. You and I both know it was a team effort in making, developing, and filling Pacifica. Besides, your name is on the list of people credited and has a whole chapter dedicated to the process leading up to the island bloom." "Fair enough," Pamela agreed with a shrug. "I couldn't have said it any better myself, Professor," said a new voice from behind. Both scientists turned around and in union exclaimed, "Prime Minister Uer, shouldn't you be in the stands with all the other world leaders?" Pamela asked. "And what were you referring to?" "Because we said a lot of things," Egon inquired. "Needing what you have to do to stake your claim. It's the show of character in a true leader," she explained. Pamela narrows her eyes at the old woman and shoots back, "And you realize that you're partly the reason we're even here in the first place." Egon nods his head and chimes in, "Yeah, if it weren't for you relocating the most dangerous criminals to Pacifica, the rest of the world wouldn't have found out and rode your coattails." The Prime Minister's face never shifted as she was being questioned and calmly replied, "I had my reasons for doing that, but I never encouraged the other world leaders to do the same. It was supposed to be a quiet operation." Egon rolls his eyes at her before griping, "Pretty freaking quiet since we got death row and life sentence criminals from places I've never heard of before. I mean, Taima, Kogistan, Nauru. What the hell even is Nauru? At least I stopped once the prisons were far emptier," she argued back. And why did you really stop doing that?" Pamela inquired of her, showing distrust in her words. "Because I knew two things that the other countries didn't. First, you were putting measures in place to make Pacifica unreachable, and second, your new quirk, removing initiative." The old woman told them, her face and tone never once changing from the stern yet relaxed expression. Both scientists look at one another in shock before looking back to the old woman and questioning her. "Did you know about this before or after we revealed it to the public?" The Prime Minister tapped her nose and gave them these parting words before leaving for her seat. "We both have our secrets, like you said, Professor. Now I won't have to relocate villains, just leave them without power." Once the old woman was out of earshot, he leaned towards Pamela and told her, "Tell Cluck to dig up some dirt on the Prime Minister." After a long while of waiting, it was finally Egon's turn to stand before the many world leaders. And to say he was nervous was an understatement. But he knew he had to do this no matter what. So he took a deep breath to calm himself before taking the mic, and once he stood on the small podium before the many political leaders, he started off saying, "Thank you to all of you, each one of the world leaders. Thank you for allowing me the chance to come and speak before you. Ladies, gentlemen, and those of you who don't relate to yourselves or can't. I come before you all to ask you one simple question." This got the crying attention as they all leaned in to listen closer, only for Egon to hit them with, "What is wrong with all of you?" This got the exact reaction he was expecting, and a tirade of shouting and accusations began to get thrown at him. But Egon remained calm and placid. When things die down a bit, Egon follows up saying, "Before you throw me out, since I wounded your simple pride, I'm sure you all know what I mean, and many more of you know who I am already. For those who don't, I am Professor Egon Cristallo, part owner and operator of the Neo Icon Phoenix Research Facility, located in Japan. And to make a long story short, I'm one of the many people who aided in the creation of the new microcontinent located in the middle of the Pacific Ocean known as Pacifica." This introduction gets their attention once more, and nearly all of them go into an awkward silence. I'm sure that name rings a bell for all of you. It's the place where you've been dumping your death row and life sentence inmates to free up more space in your jail houses for more criminals. As things suddenly stayed quiet, Egon organized his papers before telling them. Now before you think I'm just putting on airs, let me show you this. Suddenly he produced a small disc, compliments of Pura, from his pocket and threw it on the floor beside him. Security nearly rushed in, thinking it was some kind of weapon, until the disc projected a holographic image that turned into the mug shots of many different criminals from around the world. When the live feed cameras began to focus, the politicians began to sweat when their county's names showed under the criminals. Still think I'm joking around? Egon asked rhetorically, getting the hated ire glances of all people present. Well, here's some more news for you. I'm not just here to ask you all a rhetorical question, but also to stake my claim before you. As of today, Pacifica is officially off limits to any humans not working for NIP, he declared loudly through the MIC. This, unsurprisingly, got another wave of shouting and accusations thrown at him, all of which was snuffed out by one particular voice who yelled, "You can't do that." Egon turned his head to the voice and challenged, "Do what?" "Claim a piece of unclaimed land." One of the politicians yelled back at him. "I just did. Also, I made it. So it is mine. Got a problem with that, chairman of Nauru?" Egon challenged the man further, getting an angry red expression back. Turning back to the crowd, Egon proclaimed, "And to make sure none of you try to go against my word, my people and I have set up certain measures around the island in secret." The scene changed again on the hologram and brought up an image of Pacifica, from a bird's-eye view with a few pictures of some strange-looking machines and weapons. Pointing to the island first, Egon explains, "As you can see, a constant storm in the air and sea swirls around the island 24/7, making entry by air or sea nearly impossible. And if you think you can reach the island by way of undersea travel, then I wish you luck in the invisible minefield we have. And no, I'm not kidding." He assured them as many of the politicians started to mutter to themselves or one another. "And if you think you can just go right over the storm, then I hope your aircraft can handle anti-aircraft turrets and ammunition. Oh, and don't think about using teleportation or wrap quirks. We have a contingency for that," he told them, while motioning to the picture of the machine and weapon. "So in other words, world leaders, stay the hell away from my island, or pay the price. Remember, the world knows where you live," he concluded with an eerie and threatening demand. "CH-80, a new type of creature. Move, move, move," a heavily armored man shouted to his platoon of soldiers as they broke down the door to a bunker in the middle of the night. The armed men rushed in like a flood and covered every corner of the area, sweeping the whole place. Lights showed from the mounted flashlights and the doors were kicked in to reveal rooms with nothing inside of them. That is until one soldier found a room with something in it. "Target found, requesting all units at my mark," the man yelled over his walkie-talkie. In moments the whole room was filled with soldiers raising their weapons to a man standing over what looked like a body restrained to a table. "Hands where I can see them. On the ground, now," one of the soldiers demanded. The man, a pale thin thing in white lab clothes, leaned over the restrained body as he didn't move from his spot and spoke back to the armed men, telling them in a hissed voice, "You stupid idiots think you can stop me. The incubation has just begun and soon a new life will emerge. Put your hands where I can see them," one of the soldiers demanded in a shout. "I won't let you," the man whispered as he tightened his grip over the railing and bit his lip before sneakily reaching for something and suddenly pulling a gun on the armed men as he shouted, "I won't let you take away all I have succeeded at. Light 'em up." Some shouted as a hail of gunfire lit up the man who was torn to bloody shreds in seconds. When the gunfire died and the man fell to the ground, one of the soldiers spoke through his walkie-talkie and confirmed, "Target has been terminated. Repeat, target is terminated." Once this was called, everything settled down between the men as they all went around the building and searched everything left behind. One of the soldiers walked into an adjacent room and saw what looked like very large flesh-colored eggs all scattered around. The soldiers leaned down and touched one of the eggs, noting how they felt like flesh rather than a shell. He shivered and stated, "Bleck, what are these things?" "Eggs. They are so gross and squishy. Hey guys, take a look at this. This dude had white blood," another soldier called out while he stood over the dead man's body as it was colored with a white liquid. Another soldier came over and examined the corpse only to see mechanical parts sticking out of the exposed flesh. "That's not a guy, it's an android," the soldiers exclaimed in shock. "Like the phone?" asked the first one. No, no, no. A robot made to look like a human," the second one clarified. "If this is the creation, where's the creator?" the first one asked back. "Figure that out later, we've got a live one," said a different soldier as he stood over the restrained body on the table. The other soldiers surrounded the person only to see a very, very ugly man who was in a semi-lucid state. He was bald, had pale skin, sharp growth coming from his chest and shoulders, a more of exposed sharp teeth and no lips, and what looked to be blades in his arms. "Yikes. He is ugly," one soldier commented. "And unresponsive," another soldier observed as he tried to shake the person awake. "Hey guys, look at this," another soldier called into the area, causing several more to run towards the voice, only to see the soldier holding up a jar with a single splinter inside and a label he read aloud. "Property of the Neo Icon Phoenix Research Facility. This must be the stuff that got nabbed from them a week ago." He guesses. "Good thing we found it," another says. "So what should we do?" another asks. "We take all this stuff to their proper owners, and that guy as well. Hopefully, they'll be able to help him," the leader tells him before he begins to give orders. Into his walkie-talkie. "Dr. Garaki. Report." The silhouette of All for One says to the doctor through his computer screen. The old scientist, Garaki, bowing deeply as the man suddenly appeared before him, says, "I'm afraid that I've failed you, master." All for One says nothing in return as he waits for an explanation, to which the doctor tells him, after acquiring the technology and those splinters from NIP thanks to the Brotherhood of Mutants, I was able to create something with aid from my countless Nomu experiments. A truly wonderful creature that could have tipped the balance of good and evil in your favor. But the new robot I created with the same AI plan from NIP proved more difficult than I expected." All for One still says nothing as he listens to every word, only folding his hands. But even this made the old man tremble. He gulped, and then told his leader, "For some reason, it gained its consciousness and ego. It took my experiments and the subject we had acquired from our other contact. Now it's all gone and the robot has gone off the grid. I tried my best to track it down, but no luck. Forgive me." All is quiet for a long time. Only the sound of the static computer screen was heard, as All for One stewed in his thoughts. After what felt like hours, All for One finally spoke and inquired, "Could you recreate that same creature?" Garaki brought up his head and nodded rapidly while saying, "Of course, I could. But the robot took all the splinters and without them, I can do nothing. I don't even have a single egg left to make more." All for One hums in his throat for a moment before telling him, "We will acquire more splinters in due time. For now, cross-reference your note and make sure your experiment is truly perfect. Find out what else you can do in the meantime, and of course, keep on track with the Nomu creations." And he quickly followed it up by telling the old man, "Oh, and give a Nomu to Tomura. He's got something planned, and has asked me for one." "At once, my master." Garaki obliges while bowing again. Just before the computer returns to normal, All for One inquires, "And before I forget, how is our guest doing?" Garaki smiles at this question and answers, "He did exactly as you said he would. Once he revived from near death after being drained of all his blood, he stayed till he was healthy enough to escape and did." Garaki could feel All for One's smile through the screen as he stated, "Excellent. Then he knows he owes us a life debt." "I have no idea what to do," Izuku yelled to Chopper and Melissa as they ran down the hallway of the facility with the unconscious person on a hospital stretcher. A few minutes ago, the Japanese military came to their lab to bring news of reclaimed possessions of theirs and a person used in some kind of experiment. Izuku had assured them they could handle it, but once they left the man and some of their things, he freaked out. "What? Then why did you tell them you could?" Chopper yelled at him in his heavy point. "I panicked and you're the doctor," Izuku yelled back. "So are you," Chopper argued. "Yeah, but not in the medical field," Izuku argued back. Seeing this going on for a while, Melissa finally became fed up and yelled at both of them, "Can you two please stop arguing? We're in the middle of an unwell person with something wrong and we need to find out." The two boys stopped and looked at one another, coming to a silent truce as Izuku said, "Melissa is right. Chopper, what do you say we should do?" Chopper thought for only a moment before telling them, "Get me his labs, as well as a CT scan, X-ray, and ultrasound. He could have something inside his body, blood or head." The two teens nod and rush off with the unconscious man. They bring him into an examination room and begin to run their tests while Chopper goes to his office to collect his things and make notes. After about an hour, Melissa suddenly burst into Chopper's office as the reindeer had collected the last of his things and was ready to read and evaluate the patient. The girl's face was red and her expression was full of fear as she jumbled her words. "Chopper, we have to perform emergency surgery now," she half yelled at him. Confused by this sudden outburst, he asks the girl back as calmly as he can. "What? Why? What did you find?" Without saying a word, the girl hands the small animal an ultrasound photograph that shows an object inside of the person's chest. Looking up from the photo, he asks, "What is that?" Trying to center herself, Melissa shakes her head and tells him in a hurry, "I have no idea, but it's large, alive, and starting to move. This may be a theory, but I think it's trying to move out of his chest." "You mean like, burst out of it?" Chopper asked back in a horrified tone. "I don't know and don't want to find out," Melissa tells him with a shiver. Chopper also shivered at the thought before telling her, "Get prepped for surgery." After another 15 minutes, the patient had been brought into a surgery station and all three teens were prepped and cleaned for the operation. Chopper, who stood in his muscle point, looked at Melissa, who gave him the okay in his vitals. He looked to Izuku, who was organizing the freshly cleaned tool, who also gave him the okay. Chopper took a scalp and brought it to his skin, said, "Okay, let's begin with the first incision." Suddenly the machine started to beep crazy and the patient began to shake on the table, causing the reindeer to pull the knife away. "His vitals are spiking," Melissa called. "What's going on? A seizure?" Izuku asked in a panic as he tried to keep the person's body from moving. "It's that thing. It's trying to exit his body," Melissa exclaimed. Suddenly the man began to scream a horrible noise that made everyone's blood go cold. He thrashed and raged in his unconscious state as his chest began to rise up and down in one area. "Through his chest cavity," Izuku exclaimed. "Oh God, he's gonna die. This'll kill him." Melissa freaked out. "It can't. We need him. He may be our only shot at finding who had our technology," Izuku exclaimed as the man grabbed at his ripping chest. "Then what do we do?" "That thing is only minutes from bursting," Melissa asked. In fright as she also tried to hold the man down. "Get the resurrection fragment," Izuku quickly told them. "What?" both exclaimed back in surprise. "Just do it. I'll take the heat from Egon," Izuku yelled firmly. The two looked at one another before Melissa ran out of the operation room and came back only a minute later with the fragment in hand. However, the moment she ran through the door, the man was screaming something horrible and then finally stopped when his chest burst open and a pale pink thing with metallic teeth shot out. "SCIEEEE," screamed the weird-looking thing. "What the fuck?" Izuku cursed while jumping away from it. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." Melissa jumped back while waving her hands, dropping the fragment in the process. "H. Chopper screamed in shock as he reverted to his brain. Point. The newly emerged thing sat in the man's chest, covered in blood, and looking around the room, hissing at the three people present. The creature was weird to look at. It was long and slender like a worm, and also colored like one but with a bulbous end at the head. As the creature appears to take in its surroundings, an arrow suddenly goes straight through its head, causing it to fall to the floor and scream out in pain. They all looked back to see Robbie standing in the doorway with a high-tech crossbow. After wiggling on the floor in pain for a bit, the chest thing began to crawl quickly around the room, trying to find an escape. Seeing this, the teens tried to catch the thing while Robbie tried to get in another shot. "Grab it," yelled Izuku as he tried to lung for it. "Stop it," yelled Chopper in his heavy point. "Kill it," Melissa squealed as she jumped into a table. Robbie still tried to shoot at it, but nothing landed for a second time. Unfortunately, Robbie got too close to the automatic sensor and the door flew open, allowing the creature to make a mad dash for the exit. As it left the room, everyone ran outside to chase after it, only to see it had vanished. "It's gone," Izuku exclaimed in shock. "Damn it." Chopper punched the wall in frustration. "Thanks for the help, Robbie," Izuku said to the man as he gave them a rick-on hand sign before running out of the room to find the creature. Once he was gone, Izuku went back inside the room, grabbed the fragment, and walked over to the dead man while saying, "Now to bring this guy back to the living world." Izuku mentally turned on the fragment, and his body morphed into what Victor looked like. Black skin with his skeleton bleeding through. He touched the man's body with the fragment and the wound closer up right away while fixing all the internal damage. Vitals are stabilizing. His back. Melissa told them as she watched the vital reading screen. Oh, thank the gods. Izuku sighs in relief as he mentally turns off the fragment and returns to his old self. The man breathed his first breath before slipping into a comfortable rest. As the three teens rested and absorbed all that had happened, Chopper asked only one question. So? Now what? CH-81, a new type of creature part 2. So how's our new guest? Egon asked Izuku as the two of them watched from behind a window where a robot tended to the sleeping man. He's stable and still out like a light. Getting killed and brought back to life does that to you. Izuku tried to joke, only to get a stern yet quiet glance from Egon. Izuku knew this would happen, so he argued with his mentor. He was only dead for a minute. Plus, we need him. Surprisingly, Egon said nothing back and appeared to drop the subject, only giving off a long and deep sigh before asking, "And that thing that burst from his chest?" "Still looking for it," Izuku admitted, remembering how it came out, looked, and sounded so unnatural. Egon looked surprised by this answer and inquired, "How? This place has so many senses that not even a fly could enter without tripping an alarm." "I guess it's a quirk or something," Izuku guessed with a shrug. "Of course, it is," Egon stated with a groan while slapping his face. After taking a deep breath and running his hair back, he told the teen, "Okay, the top priority is finding that creature before it gets bigger or worse, lays eggs. Second, find out who our friend is and see what he knows. And third, find out what's inside those eggs before they hatch." Izuku nods and goes off to get things in place, while Egon sits back and watches the ugly man through the window, wondering why he was the one used for this thing. After sleeping peacefully for a few hours, the ugly man finally began to stir from his rest. At this time, Egon was already in the room checking on his vitals. Once he saw him awaken, he spoke to him. Well. Welcome back to the land of the living, my friend," Egon said to the man as he narrowed his eyes open before shutting them again. He rolled over in his sleep and buried his face into the pillows while complaining. 5 more minutes. Someone forgot their bright eyes and bushy tail, Egon lightly joked with a laugh. When the man heard this, his eyes shot open and he sat up fast while grabbing hold of Egon's throat and gripping tightly as his nails dug into his neck. Egon was so shocked by this that he dropped his pad and tried to break the hand free, only to find monstrous strength behind it. "You won't hold me any longer," the ugly man snarled at him with slobbering teeth and yellow eyes that were shaped like a snake's pupils. Whoa. I'm not your foe. I'm here to help you," Egon tried to assure him to de-escalate the situation. "Help?" he asked back, confused by his words. "Yes, I'm a scientist," Egon told him while trying to nod his head. "Is that some kind of sorcerer?" the ugly man asked him. "Depends on how much you like sorcerers," Egon prompted. "I don't," he growled while narrowing his eyes. "Then I'm not," Egon said too quickly, making the man tighten his grip. Only for Izuku to walk in and become shocked by this scenario. Egon thought fast and told him through what little air he had, "Oh look, your savior is here." "Savior?" the ugly man inquired while looking at the teen. Quickly realizing what Egon was doing, Izuku jumped on it and confirmed with a rapid nod. "You were dead, but I brought you back to life." The ugly man paused. He looked down as if trying to absorb all of this. He then looked back up with a confused and relieved look in his eyes as he said, Not sure what to say or do." "How about letting me go?" Egon begged as he started to turn red. Izuku nodded with this sentiment and the ugly man let Egon go, finally allowing him to breathe as he gasped for air. "I don't understand. Why?" the ugly man asked once more, truly not understanding his motive. Izuku thought about his answer for a moment and then explained, "Because you didn't deserve to go the way you went. Plus, whoever had you is an enemy of ours, since they stole what was used to make the thing that killed you." "I understand," The ugly man finally confirmed while looking down and before asking him, "But what did you mean by thing?" Izuku thought about how to put it and ended up explaining, "Well, you were infested with some kind of parasite that burrowed its way out of your chest when fully mature." His eyes went wide and he demanded in an equal part scared and angry tone, "Where is it?" "That's what we're still trying to figure out," Izuku admitted while twiddling his fingers. The ugly man then rose from the bed, walked to Izuku, bowed to him on one knee, and told him with head lowered, "For saving me, I shall serve you for the rest of my second life. Please get up, and I don't want you as a servant. Just a friend is nice," Izuku told him while helping him back to his feet and sitting him back on the bed. He then cleared his throat as he took out his pad and asked him, "Moving on from that, I need to ask you a few questions about you and your experiences, so we might be able to find the people who did this to you." The ugly man agrees with this and Izuku starts by asking him, "Okay, so can you tell me your name and where you come from?" "My name is Barkan, and I live in the outworld wastelands of the Quatan Plains." Barkan introduced himself. "Never heard of that place before," Egon chimed in as he stood beside Izuku while rubbing his neck. "You've never heard of the Quatan Plains in Outworld," Barkan said in the form of a statement rather than a question. "I've never heard of an Outworld before either," Izuku agreed. "You're not an Outworlder?" Barkan asked, getting two head shakes from them. "Now that you say it, you don't smell like one. More like an Earth Realmer," he stated while sniffing the two of them. "Well, this is Earth," Egon informed him awkwardly. Barkan looked down at his hands and gripping his pants he hissed, "I truly was sold out." The two scientists look at one another before looking back at the man whom Izuku promoted. "Could you explain?" "My master, my previous master Shang Tsung, made a deal with one of your realm sorceresses you call a scientist. I was to be exchanged as an experimental subject for something. Next thing I know, I'm bound to a table with that strange little man looking at me like fresh meat alongside his insane assistant," Barkan explained with equal parts malice and fear. "That must have been the robot," Izuku said to himself after hearing the report from the soldiers. "Can you tell us what they did to you, if you can recall?" Egon asked him. Barkan thought for a moment, then explained as best he could. Using some kind of magic crystal they created something. It looked like an egg at first, but then it opened and a small creature emerged from it. It wrapped around my face and made me swallow something. Then I blacked out." "Wait, you mean like this?" Izuku asks as he pulls up a picture on his pad of one of the confiscated eggs that the military brought him. Barkan's eyes widened as he exclaimed while pointing at the picture, "Yes, that's exactly the egg they created. It split at the top in 4 parts and that face-hugging thing crawled out and it was hideous. It looked like some kind of bug, but the worst part was how they referred to it." He told them with a shiver before bracing himself as he told them. They described it as living genitals. "You," Izuku responded. "Can you tell us about the small scientist you encountered?" Egon prompted him, feeling intrigue rise with curiosity. Barkan scratched his head then listed off vaguely. He was small, old, fat, bald, and his name started with a G. "Just like what we found on the first Nomu," Izuku whispered to Egon, who nodded back. "And these are the 3 after the city attack," Egon added in a whisper as Izuku nodded back. Before their conversation could continue, a phone call came over Egon's phone. After picking it up and listening to the other end, he hung up and told Izuku, "We gotta go. Honey Lemon just found something and Anima just cut open one of those eggs." He nods and the 2 men leave the room and Barkan behind. After a bit, the 2 men went into a room where Anima was performing an autopsy on one of the eggs, while Honey Lemon was helping Otto look over something in a different area. The 2 scientists walk up to the table where the octopus and women were only to see some strange shell-like object on the desk that Honey Lemon was poking around, and Otto was taking notes on. "What is it?" Izuku asks. "Looks like an exoskeleton," Otto casually guessed. "That thing sheds," Egon exclaimed in shock. "That thing is getting bigger," Izuku stated as his face went pale. "Don't hold your breath just yet," Cluck told them on her cart as she threw something large on the table. Looking down at the object, they saw it was a far larger and more developed version of the first shed exoskeleton. "And bigger," Izuku said in a small voice, looking ready to pass out with the quiet Honey Lemon. That exoskeleton is the size of a small child, Egon exclaimed as he held up a part and saw it had developed arms. Well, we gotta hurry before it gets any bigger, Otto stated as he pulled an emergency shotgun off the wall. Before you go hunting, how about checking out this thing I unearthed from the eggs? Anima called them over to his table. Everyone crowded around the table only to see something that could only be described as a bug with human skin. It was pink, had 8 legs, a long tail that looked like a tapeworm, and a flat body. Oh, gods. What is it? Izuku inquired. Not sure. Its physiology is all over the place. So simple yet so beautifully complex, Anima said in a Shakespearean tone. However, he wasn't allowed to continue his description of fascination with the creature as Izuku yelled, can the poetic metaphors and just get to the explanation? Anima looked taken aback by this but shook his head and explained. Right. Sorry. Its body has a simple exoskeleton but is mostly made of strong fibrous cartilage. No eyes, nose, ears, or anything like that. Organs so simple that they are no different from veins yet have an extremely well-developed sensory system, and a body structure that could only be used for, hugged in something's face. Izuku and Egon guessed aloud, dreading to hear the answer. Anima nods his head rapidly and tells them while pointing out, exactly. Look. Here. Its limbs can wrap around the face of a medium-sized creature, the tail wraps around the victim's neck, and its body can stretch and spread out across the whole face. The mouth opening underneath possesses no teeth, but a single proboscis-like tube used for inserting into the victim's mouth. What's the point of this thing anyway? Otto inquired, poking one of the legs. I'll show you, Anima told him while putting out a petri dish with a small something inside of it. This is an embryo. The point of this thing is to deposit this embryo into a living host so it can develop. After that, the face hugger dies. He explained as everyone tried to absorb all of this knowledge, only for him to follow up and throw out. Did I also mention it has acid blood? Fucking hell, Egon yells while throwing his arms into the air. So basically this creature is nothing more than Honey Lemon begins to summarize. Only for Egon, Izuku and Bakan to say, living Gentiles. Everyone was shocked by the sudden appearance of the sharp-toothed man and Izuku exclaimed, Bakan, what are you doing here? You are still unwell and need rest. But just before Izuku could try and move him out of the room, Bakan nudged him off while gripping the table and told him, I told you that I would serve. And, besides, that's the thing that crawled out of the egg and wrapped around my face. He stated while pointing to the opened egg on the table beside the face hugger. Only for a penis-shaped nematode with teeth to pop out of your chest sometime. Later, Egon summarized while biting his fingernail. Is it okay for the other eggs to be out like that? Otto inquired as he pointed to the many other eggs stacked into one another in clear containment boxes. Anima brushed him off with a wave and assured him, don't worry, so long as they are enclosed, the facehuggers within them can't get out. Let's find this thing so I can pay it back for killing me the first time, Bakan exclaimed as he shot blades from his arms, only to fall to his knees in exhaustion. Izuku caught him and said, Whoa there, slugger. You still need rest first. All I need is a good hot meal and I'll be ready to fight. Bakan tried to argue, only to fall to his knees again. Izuku rolls his eyes and says, Honey Lemon, Otto, can you two get Bakan something to eat while we deal with this? I don't get it. Why have an egg stage if you don't develop within it? Why need a transferring parasite in a host? Honey Lemon puts the man's arm over her shoulder and begins to walk him out of the room alongside the octopus. Bakan looks down at Otto and licks his teeth. This doesn't go unnoticed by Otto and he says, What are you ogling at? You look like something I ate. Bakan says back with a clock of his teeth. Well, my kind eat one another, so take that as you will, Otto warns the man, making him look away. Once they were gone, Izuku returned to the other two scientists and caught the last bit of conversation, hearing Anima their eyes. Perhaps the embryo doesn't need the warmth from the host body, or nutrition, or anything, but something else. As far as what that is, I haven't the foggiest idea until I can see the adult specimen. Egon sighs and tells them, well, first things first. Genus, I want you to subject all these eggs to cryogenic freezing, shatter them, and then place the remains in a furnace. We take no chances with them. Why not feed them to a mimicutie, Anima offered. Because that face hugger or whatever you're calling it will attach itself to it. Then, we'll have two problems to deal with. Egon says like it was obvious, rolling his eyes to make his point. But the Mimicuties are immune to it. Anima tells him out of nowhere. The two scientists both stop and stare. Okay, the man as Egon says in a firm tone. And just how do you know this? Because one of the eggs opened and a facehugger popped out, only for a Mimicutie to get the brunt end of the attack. Anima began vaguely. Bring left in suspense, both men promote. And Anima shrugs and tells them, and nothing. The facehugger had the hardest time trying to wrap around its face since it doesn't have one. Once it finished depositing the embryo, it got eaten. So I put the Mimicutie in a separate chamber, and just as I thought, nothing happened. So what did end up happening? Izuku asks him as he and Egon share looks. It got digested. You know the Mimicutie can break down any organic matter. Anima told him as if it were obvious. Egon takes a deep breath, runs his hair back, and doubles back as he tells them. Okay, new plan. Feed each egg to one Mimicutie at a time. We can't risk the Mimquit only being able to digest one embryo at a time. Apart from that, it's hunting time. CH82, a new type of creature part. 3. So why are we waiting in here instead of out there hunting that thing? Cho asked. As Egon, Izuku, and all the other employees of the facility were inside of the newly constructed panic room deep under the facility. The panic room was highly secured and comfortably furnished for long-term stays. Everyone but Cho and a few others seemed relaxed in this room. It was more than big enough to house and entertain all of them. Otto and Cluck are in an intense game of chess while Chopper, Rogue, and Rapper put a puzzle together. Egon sat on one of the couches as he casually ate from a box of candies while Pete stood on a decorative table and tried to make his way into a bag of pretzels. Because that's dangerous and stupid. We're perfectly safe in this panic room. Nothing gets in. Egon tells her with his mouth half full. Or out, Pamela gripes while rolling her eyes, only to get a candy thrown at her. Egon swallows his food and tells them, Look, we have every single combat robot. An assassin droid out there hunting that creature. Why risk our lives when we can? Have our expendables hunt it down. We did it with the Alp. Plus we've got protection in here and weapons. So even if it does come here we will be able to protect ourselves. Izuku tried and reassure them, which seemed to do the trick. All except for Barkan, who was sitting at the door and growled, I should be out. They're biting its head off. No, you should be resting. I've taken your vitals and you're not 100%, Izuku told the sharp-toothed man as Izuku helped him to his feet and into a chair. 30% is good enough for any Tarkatan, Barkan argued, only to get waved off by Izuku. Everyone looks at one another regarding the word Barkan said. Tarkatan, wondering what it meant. Did Barkan not see himself as human, or was he even human at all? There was so much mystery behind him, but now wasn't the time for it. Egon huffs as he takes his seat and tells them, Well, ask about that later. For now, let's just stay calm and cool as we all wait for our killer death machines to kill the slippery monster loose in our extremely large building. And if they can't, Melissa inquired nervously, then we'll go to Pacifica and grab some giant spiders to finish the job, Hankoy told her as he cracked open a side with his head tendrils. Just then, Honey Lemon tapped his shoulder and asked cautiously, Professor, you sure we're safe? Egon rolls his eyes and stabs up while announcing, Of course. Just then one of the vents broke and fell as something large dropped behind him and he trailed off. With a solemn, We aren't. Egon slowly turned around only to see the most hideous thing he had ever seen. It was about the size of a man, had legs like a quadruped, a body like a human, black skin, 4 tube structures coming out of its back, a long head with no eyes or ears. Just a mouth of teeth that possessed no lips, 6 fingers with 2 attached creating 3 features of an exoskeleton and muscular body merged into one, making it look like it was wearing a suit, a long tail with a spear-tipped end, and 2 bulbous objects on the forearm. The huge creature raised its tail in the air and opened its mouth, producing a horrible roar as it shot out a second jaw. Everyone panicked and screamed and ran as far away from the creature as possible. Rogue, Rapper, and Barkan all ran in front of the crowd and stood off with the monster looking ready to fight. Everyone stay back, Rouge commands as she lifts into the air. Then the monster clenches one of its hands and the oldest protrusion on its forearm. telescopically shoots out and produces a long blade in a threatening display. Bakan saw this and proclaimed, "Those are my blades. So that's why it needs a host," Izuku said softly to himself. The monster roared again and charged after the three people. It runs on all fours, like an animal, and jumps at them, teeth and claws at the ready, only for the three people to do a team punch and hit it hard enough to slam against the back wall. Meanwhile, Pura and Robbie were trying their best to deactivate the emergency lockdown timer. The monster pulled itself from the wall and suddenly jumped onto the ceiling, where it began to crawl around like a bug. Rouge was the only one who could reach it and tried many times to punch it, only for it to skitter away. She tried a very easy punch and ended up getting smacked by its tail, where she crashed into a wall. It then jumped down in front of Rapper and tried to slash him with its blade arms, only for the huge man to blow them away and land several huge and powerful blows on the creature. He jumped into its chest and began to punch its face hard, enough to draw blood. Unfortunately, this is where the monster pulled out its next trump card, and the green blood that covered Rapper's hands began to sizzle and burn. The man tried to wipe it off, but it still burned and started to melt his hands, causing him to scream in pain. The monster spat out its blood at the man's face and hit his back with his tail, piercing straight through his shoulder where he was thrown off. Rapper ripped off his mask and breathed heavily as the monster came upon him and began to slash at him with its retractable arm blades. But before he could perform the final move, Bakan was upon him and clashed blade to blade with the monster. The two of them were equal in their swordplay, but the monster had the advantage with its tail. When it tried to strike at him with it, he caught it in his mouth and bit down. The monster screamed as it pulled its tail back, only to get double pierced by Bakan's blades. It screamed and slashed him across the face with its claws before kicking him away with its feet. Bakan tumbled back but got up quickly and looked ready to attack again, only to realize his arm blade had been melted by the acid blood. "Bakan, your blades," Izuku shouted in worry, only to watch as he broke off the melted tips and grew new ones. Izuku blinked in surprise at this and said, "That's handy." As this was happening, the monster saw the weakened Rapper and raced towards him, ready to pounce, only for Rogue to slam into it, punch it several times in the face, hit its chin with her knee, and then slam it on the ground by its tail. As it lay there trying to get up, Rouge jumped on top of it without her gloves and grabbed the monster's face. Both screamed at the kickback of thoughts and emotions until the monster managed to strike her in the head with its tail. Rouge got knocked off and began to wiggle around on the ground and make animalistic sounds as she screamed. The monster, despite being held in for so long, managed to get up again. This time, through the fight, something exposed itself to the side of its head. Bakan saw this and an idea came to mind as he proclaimed, "I'm ending this." He ran after the monster only for it to tackle him and try to strike his face with the second jaw. Bakan grabbed it in his mouth and bit down while also kicking it up into the air. From here he used his blades in an upward slice and dice motion, keeping the thing in the air. When it fell, he grabbed its tail and threw it against a wall. The monster slammed into it only to be pinned against the wall by a couch, being flung by Bakan with one hand. He then casually approached the monster and grabbed hold of the thing now showing to be sticking out of its head. He grabbed and then twisted it before pushing it out the other side of its head. The monster screamed another horrible screech, and using a burst of adrenal it kicked the couch and Bakan off itself. It held the opening on both sides of its head and grabbed the wall, climbing up it, before disappearing back into the vent it crawled out of. Seeing the monster gone and the door finally opened, everyone calmed down. Robbie and Pura ran over to Rapper and used a strange yet ancient-looking device that seemed to be slowly healing him. Chopper and Doctrine tended to the spezzing Rouge, while Bakan cracked his neck and rolled his shoulders. Everyone else is stuck towards the door while robots fix the broken vent and reinforce it. Still shocked and a bit scared by this, Izuku carefully walked over to Bakan, patted his shoulder, told him, "Nice job, Bakan. Can't believe that didn't kill it," Egon said as he looked at the high-tech arrow in Bakan's hands. "Then let's make sure something will happen," the man offered as he shot out his arm blades. Sometime later, nearly the whole facility was up in arms against the monster in the building. The only ones that didn't join were Rapper, Rouge, Doctrine, Chopper, the Morgana triplets, Josie, Eri, Pete, Starro, Honey Lemon, Melissa, Wiley, who went to active his robot masters, and Hankor, who went to Pacifica to grab some giant spiders. Everyone else was armed with whatever they knew they could use or had naturally. As they walked in silence through the hallways, they came upon what could have been a gruesome sight in another scenario. Littered about the floor and chopped up into several pieces were the broken remains of dozens of robots. The group approaches the destruction and comments on it. Yikes. This thing sure is deadly, Izuku said as he held up the severed head of a robot. And intelligent if it could take down this many robots, Joe commented while kicking a leg out of the way. But where are the assassin's droids? Hatsune inquired. Maybe they were too much for it to handle, Pura guessed aloud. So we find the assassin droids, we find the monster, Izuku inferred. Now where could you be? Robbie chanted as he turned something on his goggles, making them turn blue. He scared the room of dismembered robots, only to find a set of unusual footprints mixed in them. And so he proclaimed, "Aha! You may be able to hide your body, but not every aspect of your existence." He waved his hand down the hall and everyone nodded as he took the lead and followed the tracks. They followed Robbie right into the creature division where they came into one of the labs where Anima was working with extremely loud music on, so loud that nothing could be heard within the room. Izuku manages to run in and yank the cord away from the wall, causing the music to stop abruptly as well as Anima's dancing. He took off his goggles and seeing the heavily armed people with serious expressions on their faces, his first instinct was to crack a joke. "Oh hey, guys. What's with the torches and pitchforks? Did someone accidentally create a witch or something?" Anima laughed only to stop as he saw no one laughing with him and got a bit more serious. "This isn't a mob, it's a tactical defense." "Forget that. Why are you here?" Egon shot back. "I'm taking care of those eggs as you said," Anima told him as he showed another Mimikyu eating the last egg. Izuku blinked in dumbfoundment at his answer and asked, "Did you hear my announcement?" Everyone was to be inside the panic room. "Sorry, guess I didn't hear," Anima nonchalantly apologized. "No kidding, I'm surprised you can hear at all," Egon quipped as he saw the music had been turned up to the highest setting. Izuku shook his head and then told him in a hurry, "Look, we don't have time for this. Genus, you have to get some defense for yourself. We're in the middle of a hunt. Whatever popped out of Barkan has grown to full size and with his quirk. We have to find it and kill it before it gets out or kills someone." "What's a quirk?" Barkan asks. Only for this to be brushed off as Anima excitedly says, "Before we do that I have to show you something. Please tell me you didn't create another creature." Egon and Izuku groan. "No, don't be silly." Anima waved off the accusations. "I found one and his super cool. I'll call him." He then puts his fingers in his mouth and whistles loudly. Suddenly something runs from the other end of the room and sits beside Anima. This thing happened to be the monster, and in response, everyone screamed and pointed their weapons at the thing. However, Anima didn't correctly take this. "I knew you guys would like him," he exclaimed with joy. That wasn't a scream of jubilation. That was a scream of horror. "That's the thing. It's super dangerous," Egon yelled. "You sure? It acts pretty tame," Anima asks back as he takes out a hunk of meat from a nearby chest. Everyone's eyes go wide at what he says, which is followed up by Egon exclaiming, "Tame. Anima, that is a wild monster." Egon trailed off his statement as he watched Anima drop the meat at the monster's feet and watched as it began to eat it up while the ever-changing man petted its head, leaving everyone awestruck in dumbfounded silence. "What the what?" Izuku exclaimed. "Yeah, he had this huge hole going through his head. So I patched him up and now we're buddies," Anima explained to them while pointing to the patchwork on the creature's head where the arrow was before. As everyone stood around with mouths open as they tried to form words of what they were seeing, Pura piped up and theorized, "This is just a guess, but I believe this creature's body developed quicker than its mind. So when Robbie shot that arrow through its head when it first emerged, followed by Barkan shoving it out the other end, it must have lobotomized it, making the creature docile. I don't care what happened. It's meat," Barkan yelled as he brought out his blades and linger for the monster, only for it to watch him away with its tail. As Izuku went to pick up Barkan, Pura followed up saying, "Okay, scratch the docile part. It's just cool with people." "So does that mean we can keep it?" Anima asked hopefully. Egon gave him a look and exclaimed firmly, "Are you crazy? No. This thing is a freak of nature and science. It shouldn't even be alive. Kill it immediately. At this, the monster looked at Egon and hissed, to which Animal stated, I don't think it liked your comment. Egon slaps his face and yells, who cares? It was made with our technology and without our consent. Besides, you saw what that thing was capable of. What if it performs parthenogenesis and its copies aren't as docile? Don't worry, I took some scans and found it to be completely sterile, Anika assures him. Egon is taken aback by this until he tries to argue. Even so, what use is it to us? Not like we can use it to track down who made it. Anima shot a look at him and stated, what's the use? You said it yourself. Look at all the things it was able to do. We do need night security, and the robots can be tricked or hacked or caused to have malfunctions. Plus, don't we need more security measures now that the old facility is being refurbished into storage? It's a good chance for looters to try and steal something we left behind. So you're saying we should use this thing as a guard dog? Izuku asked him after rejoining the group. He thought about it for a bit, shrugged, and said, well, it's not like we haven't done crazier things around here. I can only suppose that you've already managed to give the creature a name. Egon sighed in defeat, knowing he was right and couldn't fight against it at this point. So he just let it happen. Anima nods in reply as he tells them, the alien. Seriously, nearly everyone says to him with a disappointed expression. You have to admit it does look like it came out of outer space. Anima tried to sell it further, only to have the same reaction on everyone's faces. So he huffed at their refusal and offered, okay, then how about xenomorph? At this, everyone has a group groan of different tones and lengths. Bakan, being the only one not to, questions, I don't see why everyone is groaning. That seems like a considerably better name. Xenomorph does mean alien, it's just a much fancier way of saying it. Izuku explained, making Bakan roll his eyes at Anima. Late night at the original NIP building. Are you sure about this, man? A short man in a hoodie asked a much taller man in a trench coat. The man nods and tells him, of course I am. If we can get our hands on anything they have stored away in here, we'll be set for life. Hell, if we can recreate it, we'll make bank. The two men start their walk again, and within a few minutes, they make it to the front of the seemingly abandoned previous facility of NIP. As they made their way up the broken stairs and through the caved-in wall, the shorter man stopped and stood in the doorway. The taller man noticed this and turned around to see his friend standing and shaking like a leaf. What's wrong with you? Are you pussing out already? The tall man jostles him. The short man shakes his head rapidly and tells him in fear, no. My quirk is acting up. There's something very wrong in the air around this place. The taller man grabs his friend and pulls him deeper into the cold, dead, quiet, and dark building while telling him, relax. It's just a renovated building at night. It's gonna be spooky here. The shorter man tries to fight back but can't break free, so he pleads with him. It's not that. This place is a super big deal, yeah. The man stops, turns to him, and answers, yeah. Then where are any security measures? It all seems too easy to just walk up. The shorter man tells him. The taller man lets go of him as he thinks about this. But after seeing in his head, he comes up with nothing and tells him, maybe we just got lucky. Now come on, bro. Let's search this place for any goodies. As he started to walk away, he never noticed that his friend hadn't said a word back. So he spent the next few minutes searching through some room until he realized that his friend hadn't said one word to him. So he finally turns around, sees nothing, and calls out down the empty and foreboding hallway, bro. But no response. Then he sees a figure moving in the dark and a silhouette begins to form until it suddenly disappears. The man backs away as he looks around in the dimly lit area and doesn't notice the new silhouette right above him until it drops right onto him. In response, he talks to his butt and scampers back on his hands and butt, coming face to face with a huge misshapen thing colored black. Why you're not my bro? The man says in fear as the thing approaches him slowly and methodically. What are you? He asks as it grabs his face, and the last thing he sees is the second jaw of the alien. Her normal patrol. Until she felt a sharp pain hit her head. Stopping and dropping. To her knees she grabbed her head until the vertigo passed. Once it did, she grabbed the wall and helped herself slowly back to her feet. Back on her feet, she tried to find the nearest water cooler only to get a chill running up her spine. She stopped and shivered involuntarily, especially as a voice said to her, "You." "Hey," she gargled out while looking around. "You." She heard the voice again as a mistake swirled around her feet and rose around her as if trying to grab her, easily breaking free of the mist. She backed away until it began to form the silhouette of a very familiar person as she asked, "Whose?" "No. Not again." "You." The mist took the full shape of a very angry woman yelling at her. "No," Rouge said back in a small, weak voice. "You stole my life," the mist woman yelled as she tried to lunge for her. Triple A. Rouge screamed bloody murder as she flew away at top speed and flew through several walls before finally passing out on the floor. "Rouge! Rouge! Anna!" a voice yelled and shook her awake. Rouge got up fast and held up her fists ready for a fight, only to see Izuku standing over her with hands out in self-defense as he exclaimed, "Geez, get a hold of yourself." Rouge calmed down as she put her hands down and sat up while rubbing her head. She apologetically said back, Sorry, sugar." "Sorry, don't fix the walls you break." Izuku offered her a hand as he looked at the walls that were broken through by the woman and being fixed by robots. After helping the woman to her feet, he asked her, "Seriously, this is the 7th time this week and it's not even Friday. What's going on with you?" "It's nothing, honey," Rouge told her as she grabbed her arm and looked off to the side. "This is nothing," Izuku incredulously asked back as he forced her head to look at the damage, making her look even more regressed as he sighs and asks again, "Seriously, Anna, what is going on with you? You're lucky that no one is around when you have these episodes. But what if you're not so lucky next time?" Rouge thinks on this for a bit before finally saying, "Okay, I'll sing. You know how. I can acquire nearly every aspect of someone when I touch them." Izuku nods and Rouge continues saying, "Well, if I hold on long enough, not only will they die, but I can acquire a part of their mind." Izuku doesn't have to think about this for long as he quickly puts it together and asks her, "Is that what's been happening to you?" Rouge nods and tells him with a fearful tone, "She's like a ghost. Constantly haunting me for what I've done. It drives me mad, but I know I deserve it. I took her life away and put her into a coma," Rouge admits as she begins to cry. Izuku comforts the crying woman, holding her in a hug as he assures her, "Rouge, you're not the same person you used to be. In a way, it might have been just the thing. You needed to break away from the Brotherhood and turn your life around." Rouge says nothing as she continues to weep for a while longer. After she finishes, Izuku gives her a tissue and inquires, "But why didn't you say something before?" Rouge wipes away another stray tear and replies, "Like I said, I deserve it. I hurt her even if I didn't know the ramifications." Izuku places a hand on her shoulder while standing in front of her and telling her, "But you can't keep torturing yourself like this. It's not right." Rouge gives a sad sigh and says back, "Even so, I have no idea how to reverse this. I can't give back what I've stolen unless," she says with a hopeful glint only for Izuku to look unsure. "I'm afraid we don't have a way to do that," he unfortunately tells her, making the woman drop, only for Izuku to follow up with, "Yet. Don't have a way yet. But, until then, we can silence her. Cluck has a device to do that. It's not a permanent measure, but at least you'll have peace of mind from her. By the way, who is?" "Huh?" Rouge stammered for a moment before speaking, but when she did, she told him, "An American superhero called Captain Marvel." "Captain Marvel," Izuku repeated back with a voice that tilted between shock and fear mixed with surprise. Rouge immediately noticed this and asked, "Sugar, why'd you say it like that?" Izuku shook his head to get rid of his funk, and then replied, Rouge, I'm not sure you want to hear what I really want to say." This caught Rouge's attention, and grabbing his shoulders she demands, "Then say it. Come on, I can handle it. I'm a big girl." Izuku pushed her off and explained, "Okay, if you insist. You might have actually done a service by permanently killing her." "What?" Rouge unsurprisingly exclaimed back in shock. Izuku then went into nerd mode and told her in depth, "Captain Marvel, formerly known as Ms. Marvel, is actually a really bad person. Well, she wasn't at first, but then she got into identity politics and turned into a monster. She was on the shit list for years, but the American government couldn't get rid of her because of her connections, quirk, and supporters. She was a hop, skip, and a jump away from turning into a full-blown villain. You might have averted a disaster. I was wondering why she hadn't been seen in action for such a long time, he said to himself with a hum. Rouge was nearly at the precipice of a panic attack as she was half hunched over. With hands on her head, her blank eyes stared off into nothing while she babbled. Oh my God. Is what you're saying true and you're not trying to make me feel less bad? I wish I was, Izuku confirmed as he sucked air between his teeth. Now I just feel even more conflicted. Rouge mopped as she slid to the floor, while hugging her knees. This is why I didn't want to tell you, Izuku pointed out as the woman receded further into herself, only for him to sit beside her and say, Look, Rouge, I know. You're not feeling the best about this in any way. But your past is just your past. It only has as much power over you as you give it. It doesn't define you or anyone else in it. What matters is the now. So what do you want to do now? Rouge sat with her face in between her legs as she thought long and hard. After a while, she finally told him, I want to change. To be better than my daddy and my mama and the person I was before. And what I want most of all is peace of mind. My mind. Izuku smiles at this, stands up, holds out his hand, and offers with a chuckle. Then, let's go see the chicken. The thought of this also made Rouge chuckle as she took it and walked with him to Dr. Orpington's office and workspace. CH84, Triassic Park. Thank you very much for seeing me despite your busy schedule, Professor Izuku. Especially when so many people are flooding in every day to get their quirks removed or a new one placed into them. An old man cordially greeted and thanked the young man. The man was well into his late 60s, somewhat short and plump, with white hair and a white beard, thick glasses, and a safari outfit coupled with a cane that had an ember mosquito fossil inside. Sitting across from the old man in his office, Izuku smiled back at his kindness and told him, Of course, it's an honor to meet a man of science and paleontology such as yourself, Dr. Hammond. But what exactly is it you wanted to talk about? As I'm sure you already know, your most recent creation of the Paleo Pets has been a huge success, Hammond began vaguely. The Paleo Pets, an idea created by Professor Genus and greenlit by Egon, is a line of highly modified dinosaurs that are made to be completely domestic house pets. The process is long, tedious, and expensive, making the animals expensive as well. They are much smaller than their larger cousins, unless they were small in the first place, colorful, and completely domestic, so they are fully reliant on humans due to their care. As of now, the only ones they have in stock are the Paleoraptor, Triceratops, and T-Rex. Izuku blows out a raspberry as he says back, You don't have to tell me twice. We're back-ordered for months and couldn't make those babies quick enough. It wasn't only a matter of time before someone did something like this. May as well try to be the first ones to control the eventual storm. Hammond chuckled and said in agreement, I couldn't have said it any better. Myself. So what do the Paleo Pets have to do with anything? Izuku asked back. I heard from my sources that you can revive long-extinct dinosaurs, Hammond answered. Suddenly a ton of weapons all sprang up out of nowhere and pointed at the man. Yuziji carefully asked him, How much did you hear and from whom? Jammons pushed the barrel of a gun from his face and told him with a closer eye. Smile. I only know the way you revive them, not the manner you do it. As for who, that would be Japan's own Prime Minister. How? Izuku prompted further. We used to be old lovers, Hammond replied with a start-eyed gaze. So that's how. Izuku gripes at the thought of it. After shivering in disgust, he retraced the weapons and asked the old man, But I still don't get what you want from us. I want to open a pack, he finally told him with zeal and childlike excitement in his voice. A pack, Izuku repeated. Hammond shook his head and explained. A park filled with dinosaurs and other extinct animals from every era of Earth's history. A place that is fun for everyone, of all ages, knowledgeable, and most importantly, affordable. Dr. Hammond, that's all well and good, and I can see that your heart is in the right place, but not your head, Izuku admitted, making the man falter in his excitement, making Izuku feel bad at seeing the downer old man, following up to tell him, Look, I'm not saying the idea is crazy. Actually, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. A park filled with unknown creatures from unknown eras of history. I've seen enough horror and monster films to know that it could do nothing but go south. Don't you think you're being a bit pessimistic? Hammond questions him. Izuku shot him a look and said back, "No, I'm being realistic. Look, when I was 10, I would have killed to see a T-Rex in real life. But I'm older, wiser, and know that's a bad idea. We don't know anything about these animals. What if we try to contain them and find out we can't? What is the point of taking a risk if you are too scared to do it?" Hammond argued. "What is the point if you can foresee the risk overtaking the reward?" Izuku argues. Hammond sits back and with a sigh inquires, "Haven't you already revived many dinosaurs?" "Yes, and they came out brain dead. Only when we bred them did we get something not brain dead." Izuku tried to explain it as best he could without giving away too many details. "I assume that you have to be getting these creatures for your paleo pets somewhere," Hammond guesses. Izuku grunts in frustration at the man's persistence and offers him, "Then let me show you what the wild version of the cute, cuddly, domesticated versions look like." Izuku then brought Dr. Hammond into the creature division where he was brought down an elevator on the lower floors. There in one of many different high-tech cages was a small group of velociraptors fighting one another over a cow carcass. All of them were jumping around and biting one another while striking with their claws for a bit of the dead bovine. The sound they made was even worse than any movie could produce, and it sounded more like a murder scene was taking place. Hammond could only stand by in shock at this sight and say, "Oh, my." "Yeah," Izuku agreed. Shaking himself out of his shock, Hammond insisted, "But still you must understand, the world would benefit from so much learning about these creatures. And as you said, if you don't do it someone else will. And they may cut corners and then seize the blame on you." Izuku still looked steadfast in his decision as he kept his arms crossed and glazed hard. So Hammond tried again and prompted him, "Isn't it better to try and control the outcome? If someone does make a dinosaur, you have a place to put it." This made Izuku's ears go up, and he began to think about this to himself. And the more he did, the more it made sense. They had been robbed once. Who's to say it couldn't happen again? And this time something even worse comes from it or gets out of hand than just one xenomorph. What if they don't have the facility to hold it? It would be better to have more space, just in case. Finally, he caved and told the old man, "Oh, all right, you've convinced me. But it will take time to plan everything out, and then make, which won't be cheap." Hammond smiles at this and tells the teen, "I'll spare no expense in making sure it is off the ground, operational, and safe. In addition, I'll be sure to funnel 40% of the income to your facility." "Well, I gotta admit that is quite dash dot," Izuku began to say until his phone rang. "Oh, hold on a second," he told the old man while looking at the caller ID and answering, "Hello. Is this Professor Izuku Midoriya?" a voice asked over the line. "It's Doctor, but yes." "Though who is this?" Izuku answered. The voice, now sounding irate, half yelled at him, "My name isn't important, I want to complain about the product that I bought." "What product?" "We have many," Izuku inquired. The voice groaned and yelled at him, "The dragon I bought. It's completely unmanageable, plus it ran away. I want my money back." Izuku froze as he heard this word and didn't speak for so long that the person on the other end yelled to get his attention. When he snapped back, he clutched the phone tight and dangerously asked the person, "What? Dragon?" "CH-85, Dragon Hunters." "So, am I gonna get my money back or what?" a male Karen demanded as he sat across the desk from Egon and Izuku. The two men look at one another, bask at the man, then push the panic button, where several high-tech weapons descend from every place and point fright at the man who froze up. Egon looked over at the man and told him in a deadly voice, "At the rate you're going, you'll be lucky to keep your life if you don't sing. BBBB baby shark do baby shark dash dot." The man began to babble out a song as he started to cry and wet himself. Egon and Izuku watch this pathetic sight for a while until Egon slaps his face and yells, "No, no, no. Not that kind of singing. I meant the kind where you start talking." "About what?" The man cowers back his question. "About what? About what?" "About the fucking dragon you bought. Where did you get it?" Egon screamed at the man while grabbing his shirt collar. I got it from you guys," the man finally confirmed. Egon rolled his eyes and stated, "Bullshit, you did. We don't sell the dragons on Pacifica, they are far too dangerous." So where and who, and I want names. The man gulped, and as he was ed into the chair by the man, he explained, I'm Fear. I never got their names, honest. I found a website that was selling dragons from your company. So I contacted them, set up a date and arranged to meet, handed off cash, and took home a dragon egg that was just hours from hatching. I swear that's all I know. How much did you pay? Where did you meet? When did you make the purchase? And what website? Egon demanded while slamming the table. The man jumped at the slam and told him, I paid $8K for it, and I met in some random alleyway in the city. I can't remember what part. I made the purchase 3 months ago, and it was a website on the dark web. Both men looked at one another before looking back at the cowering man. Where? Izuku inquired. You saw a website on the dark web of all things, claiming to be us, selling highly dangerous dragons, and you thought it would not only be a good idea to buy one but also to keep a creature that would try to eat you once it grew to the size of a large dog. The man nods. Izuku slaps his face and asks him, rhetorically, are you insane? I wanted something to attract girls. Nothing says chick magnet like dragons. Right. The man offers his argument. Izuku groans and tells the man, you could have just used that money on a gym membership and a personal trainer. Or a cute dog or plastic surgery if you were that desperate and lazy. And did you think you could just ride this thing through the sky and pretend like nothing bad would happen with what was essentially a wild animal? Egon asks him after taking a swing from a hip flask. When you put it like that, the man began to say, upon realizing his mistakes, only for Izuku and Egon to slap their faces and yell, oh, for the love of the gods. They both groan in unison, and Egon tells the man, okay, you're gonna show us that website and what kind of dragon came out of the egg when you got it. Yeah, he says while putting a paper and pen in front of him with a giant book containing every species of dragon of Pacifica. Why, yeah. Sure. The man agrees while writing the name of the website and skimming through the pages of the book. After a few minutes, he stops at a pic of one and pointing to it, he confirms, it was this one. As Egon texted this information, Izuku looked at what he was pointing at and told him, that's not a dragon. The man shot him a confused look before he explained, that's a wyvern. Only a small handful can breathe fire, and this one isn't. Can't say if I should count you lucky or not. The man took back his irate stance and demanded, lucky? I wanted a genuine, fire-breathing dragon and they didn't give it to me. So how is that lucky? You live in an apartment, Izuku asked, appearing to go off topic. To which the man agreed, and Izuku explained in a deadly tone, a large creature in a small space that can breathe fire. How does that sound out loud? The man looked away in shame as Izuku continued to tell him, and besides, count yourself lucky that it didn't try to eat you. Wyverns are highly venomous. Its venom would have paralyzed you, and being a young creature with no idea how to properly kill something, it would have eaten you alive. This made the man go pale and almost pass out right there if not for Egon interjecting and telling them, well, don't freak out now. Cluck found the website and is hacking it as we speak. We'll have answers to this and people in jail before nightfall. The two men nod, deactivate the panic mode, and begin to leave the room when the male Karen yells at them, wait, what about me? My apartment is destroyed. The landlord is demanding repairs, and I'm 8K in the hole. These guys will be brought up on their charges within the day. When that happens, you can put your hat in the running to demand compensation. Egon offers. You're not gonna pay me, he demanded. Egon casually approached him and he said in a sticky sweet voice, I mean, we're could. But then we'd have to have you arrested for using and buying something off the dark web and housing an illegal animal. Since when are dragons illegal? The man retreated into himself. Since the Prime Minister declared it yesterday alongside any other animal or plant. From Pacifica. Izuku chimed in as he pulled out the document fresh from the Japanese Parliament. Later on, all the staff of NIP were brought into the main meeting room for an emergency meeting. Once everyone was accounted for and Izuku and Egon were seated at the front of the table in front of a projector, Egon began with a feverish tone in his voice. Okay, people, we've got a huge problem on our hands. And that's huge with a capital big, he exclaimed while slamming his hand on the table. We're in the red, Chopper exclaimed. No, he answered. We're under attack again, Melissa exclaimed. Thank the gods no, he answered with relief. Is it Dash? Rapper began to ask. Can we please just stop this running gag? Someone got onto Pacifica and stole a bunch of dragon eggs and was selling them on the black market, Izuku yelled, with vigor making everyone stare in slack-jawed silence. Oh, that is a big problem, Hatsune commented while taking off his goggles. But how? Pacifica is untouchable from the outside without the warp pads. Hankor inquired. That's because our thieves got in when we hadn't gotten all those defense measures up, Egon answered. Yeah, but how did they know Pacifica had dragons? Joe prompted. Egon sighed as he took off his glasses to clean them. Once he put them back on, he told them, remember at the UA Sports Festival when the vampire attacked? Well, they saw that, did some digging on us, managed to track down Pacifica, and found way more than they bargained for. How do you know all this? Honey Lemon inquired. I hacked their website and found out everything about them and where they were. Then it was all a matter of calling the police and making them sing, Cluck said, with a boastfully proud tone that made Otto roll his eyes. Dang, you guys move fast, Rouge said with an impressed tone. And now we gotta move even faster. Dozens of eggs were stolen from the island and sold off to the highest bidder or anyone gullible enough to buy one, Izuku told them as he pushed his hair back. After he took a calming breath, he continued, saying, we managed to account for many eggs, but well over 40 eggs were sold off, and probably even more we don't know about. I'll go to Pacifica and ask Ungoliant and Qualag about that. Hankor excuses himself while moving to the main hub warp pad. Once he was gone, Pamela inquired, so what are we gonna do? That's the thing. I have no idea. Izuku told them only for everyone to look at. Egon as he also sadly shook his head. But the ever-growing helplessness was quickly snuffed out when one voice stated, you don't, but I do. Anima, everyone said in unison as the man stood up from his seat. Oh geez, what crazy concoction have you cooked up this time? Egon prompted him while trying not to roll his eyes. The ever-changing man got up from his seat, went to the computer and typed something in as the projector behind the two facility owners turned on. Looking behind them, they saw a PowerPoint presentation light up on the screen as the man took the front and began to explain. I had a sneaking suspicion that something like this may happen, so I was planning and designing something to combat dragons if they ever did get onto the mainland. Let me guess. It's some kind of new predator that eats dragons, Izuku guessed. A few people chuckled at this, and Anima also giggled as he stated, no. Well, I do have something like that and something for the giant spiders to feed on so they don't overeat the smaller creatures and dragons. Also, I'm gonna have to work with Pamela to create a plan for them. He began to babble. Anima, Egon said in a dangerous tone. Anima put his hands up defensively and told him, I haven't made it yet. Honest. It's just the planning stage. I do have the planning all laid out for the anti-dragon measures. He then turned to the projector and announced proudly, I give you the Dragon Hunter. Dragon Hunters, everyone said back in confusion and intrigue. I wanted to do Monster Hunters, but that's already been taken. Anyway, I have everything planned out from the armor, weapons, mounts, fighting styles, fighting formations, traps, healing items, supports, buffs, and so much more, he rattles on, like an excited child. This sounds more like the concept for a JRPG. Wily waters it down only to get weird looks from everyone, to which he exclaimed, what? I may be old, but I can know things. Well, I did take a little bit of inspiration, but overall it's based on science, Anima confirmed. As he went through the slides and began to explain everything in detail, Egon stopped him at one slide and said, hold on, these two right here, the King Hound and Lighting Beast. I accepted the creation of those two things. You mean to say? Anima nodded and replied, yep, I was putting things together just in case. Nothing happened yet, so I decided to take my time. So that's why you had me make all that weird armor, said Hatsune. And had me make all those weird weapons, said Cho. And had me make all those weird concoctions, said Honey Lemon. And had us test them, said Doctrine. You've sure been busy, Mr. Taking My Time. Egon said while shooting him a look. And here I thought Wily was sneaky, Izuku jokes. I resent that point, Wily glared at the teen. So after seeing all this, I can only guess you've found potential candidates for this team, Izuku guessed. Anima nods again as he flips to a new set of slides showing 4 different people. As he explains, 4 of them. One's a despite, one's an ex-criminal, one's a dishonored soldier, and the last has nothing left to lose. All people without a purpose but in need of one. And if they fail, at least they are expendable. That's pretty cold, Josie pointed out. Anima sighs as he takes off his glasses and tells her, that's kinda where we're at. Right now. If we don't act soon, those dragons will begin to reproduce exponentially and eat everything. They'll change the landscape and the natural order of every environment. Instead of killing them, why don't we just try to use the good boy splinter on them? That seems more appropriate, Melissa offered. It takes several days for that splinter to take full effect. Time we don't have. Plus, we can't have domesticated fire-breath-flying monsters on an island full of criminals, Anima tells her. I thought we got that taken care of, Cho asked. Rolling his eyes while blowing a raspberry, Egon answered, yeah, but before that, every country decided to go ham and dump huge quantities of criminals on the island just before we started the defense progress. The spiders are gonna have to buckle down for this one, Pamela said as she thought about Hankoi. But what about the one Izuku used on Camilla? She became tamed after only a few seconds, Melissa pointed out. That was different. That was a specialized splinter made for such an emergency. There was only one and it shattered after use. It took a whole month just to make one, and I don't think I have the fortitude to do it again and again, Otto said, as he looked at his coffee cup with a nearly crazed look in his eyes. Also, they can't be copied and pasted like other splinters since what goes into them is so specific and the splinter would only copy one aspect of it. Anima finished off for him. But it was a good idea, Melissa, Egon assured her as he saw he was defeated at her idea being rejected. Egon then turned back to the man and told him, okay, Anima, I'm officially giving you full unrestricted reign on this project. Do whatever you have to do, use or get what or whoever you need. We need this off the ground and ready to go ASAP. CH-86, a new breed on the island. Oh, the shame. Oh, the shame, Quillard cried as he splayed himself over a large rock. After sobbing for a bit, he finally looks over to a giant spider beside him and asks, oh, Mistress Shelob, did you see how mad and disappointed Lord Hankor was with us and Lady Ungolant? Did you see the anger? The disappointment? Did you see it? Lady Ungoliant was so embarrassed and so crossed with us for failing. The spider, Shelob, was far different from her other brothers and sisters. She looked far more like her mother and Quillard's lower half, not to mention her heightened intelligence. She was larger than Quillard but far smaller than Ungoliant. Because of this, she was dubbed the princess and future ruler of the spiders. She was sitting outside with her mother's servants as he wailed and moaned like a baby, listening to his gripping but not laying beside him and sharing his sentiment. Though his words did hold some form of truth behind them, the recent events still stuck in her mind. The only person greater than her mother was her grandfather Hankoi, who just so happened to visit them a few hours earlier. Hankor walked through the dark recesses of the Black Veil Canyon, a geological structure that wasn't made by the island itself, but by Ungoliant and her many children digging it up. After finishing constructing the wide stretch of rock, Ungoliant decorated it with her web before eating every last bit of light within the area and reproducing exponentially. Thus the Black Veil Canyon was born with no life daring to enter apart from spiders and the occasional ballsy dragon that would never come back. Hankoi was riding the back of a giant spider, as he couldn't navigate the maze like web structures in the advanced darkness. Finally, he came to the center, where Ungoliant resided. The huge spider was sitting in an intricate bed of webs as she was brought copious amounts of food directly to her mouth by other spiders. Upon seeing her father, Ungoliant called off her feast to give him all her attention. Walking close to the spider, he told her, "Hey, is everything going okay for you? Guys, I just got word that a truckload of criminals were dumped here a few weeks ago. Why didn't you tell me? Were you too stressed and couldn't say? I would've liked to know since I could have sent help or sent word to my boss to double efforts here that aren't exclusively yours." Upon hearing this, Ungoliant curled into herself in embarrassment for not taking care of her duties and allowing them to go out of hand. She knew that more humans had been dumped and did nothing about it. Now they are mobilizing and adapting to the chaos of the island, and that is causing problems since she never said anything the last several times Hankoi had visited. For the first time, Ungoliant was embarrassed and ashamed. Currently. Oh, the shame. The shame. Quelaag sobbed as he flopped onto the floor and created a huge puddle of tears and lava from his two halves while Shelob appeared to roll her many eyes. After sobbing again, he ranted to the giant spider next to him. "Oh, Mistress Shelob, how are we going to rectify this conundrum? Lord Hankoi is crossed and your mother, Lady Ungoliant, is fuming. How can I exonerate myself from this and show my worth?" Realizing his word choice, he backtracks and says, I mean, how can we exonerate ourselves? Not mere apologies for getting carried away there. After allowing the man-spider to indulge himself in his own over-the-top fantasy, an emotional state, she hisses and clicks her fang to him, perking up his ears. Quelaag asks, "What's that? You say you have an idea. Well, please tell me." "Mistress." Shelob comes close to his ear and begins to say something in a language only they can understand. After listening for a few minutes, Quelaag exclaimed, "What an amazing idea, as are all your ideas, Mistress Shelob. But there is just one thing. How are we to convince your mother, Lady Ungoliant, to help us? She is still so embarrassed she won't leave her den from the shame. I doubt she will even allow the thought of accepting this wonderful idea of yours, let alone giving up her precious and holy flesh." Shelob says something else, and after thinking about it, Quelaag replies, "I suppose you're right, and you always are. We must try. These filthy humans have been making a mockery of us in the last few weeks. Since their numbers have doubled overnight, they've set up strongholds, begun to learn about the island, learned to fight its creatures and us, and even have started to tame some of the friendlier beings. And worst of all, they all do this despite me. And whoever spites me spites you and your mother. Let us go see the goddess." With that settled, the two spiders make their way back to the center of the Black Veil Canyon. When they finally arrive, they are met with the sight of Ungoliant performing her main duty as queen. After eating so much food, she has put all her body into laying more eggs. Normally many of them don't hatch due to not being fertilized, eaten, destroyed, or turned cold. Even so, many more won't make it to adulthood due to predators and cannibalism. As they approached, Ungoliant temporarily stopped her egg-laying to give her full attention. Once she has her man's eyes on them, Quelaag falls to his knees and proclaimed while Shelob stood by and watched, "Lady Ungoliant, my goddess, my wonder, my savior, your loyal servant comes before you, humbly, to ask no beg you for your assistance." Ungoliant said nothing while Shelob sighed at his theatrics as he continued, "Your daughter, Mistress Shelob, has come up with a marvelous idea on how to deal with the human crisis in Pacifica." Shelob casually approached her mother and began to click her fingers and hiss in different tones. Once she was done conversing, Quelaag asked, "What say you, my goddess?" In response, Ungoliant shifted her giant thorax up and over her head where it appeared huge sweat drops began to form. Quelaag acted fast and created a net made of webs that he used to catch the falling sweat. When the last one dropped, he peeked inside to admire it. But instead of a normal liquid, it wriggled and writhed. Like many snakes, these were Ungoliant's sentient flesh blobs, piece of her own body that held just a sliver of her consciousness that appeared like black leeches. Quelaag's eyes gleamed like the first-time excitement and nostalgia of a child. He giggled to himself, bowed deeply, and announced, "Oh, thank you, my goddess. Thank you. I will not waste even one of them and guard it with my life. I shall see to your daughter's plan at once and by myself." Quelaag left the center nest at once and began to make his way out of the canyon. From there he walked along the barren path to the nearest mountain. However, he quickly noticed someone following him, and he turned around to see Shelob close on his tail. "Mistress Shelob," he said in confusion as the spider walked up to him, showing off their size difference. Shelob then said something in her spider tongue and Quelaag said back, "You want to join me? No, you can't. This isn't the work for a demigoddess such as yourself. Only for a lowly servant. Please, allow me to dash dot." But Shelob made a loud and angry hiss, making Quelaag jump a bit at the harsh tone. Understanding what she wants, Quelaag bows and tells her, "As you wish, my mistress." From there the two spiders make their way up the tallest and only active volcano on the island. Shelob takes the front and Quelaag takes the rear. As they continued To climb up, it was apparent that Quelaag was beginning to have second thoughts about this plan, especially since they had just fended off the 24th dragon attack as they scaled. Mistress Shelob, I'm never one to question you or your mother's methods or ideas, but must we go to such lengths? I don't know if the Dragon King will even agree to this, let alone hear us out. We've only been climbing this volcano for 10 minutes, and have been attacked by more of his kin than I care to count. The man spider asked as Shelob replied in a series of hisses and clicks. So he gave a small sigh and replied, if you are so sure, I will see it through to the end, all before using his synth to cut the head off a diving mountain devil. After a few more minutes they made it to the top of the volcano where a large and solid platform was formed around the base of the lava below it like a bowl of soup. Looking around the area, Quelaag questions aloud. Sometimes I wonder how such a creature can live in a volcano so small. Mistress, you wouldn't happen to know how we can summon him from his volcanic bath? I don't think either of us could get his attention. Shelob then used one of her legs to point to a very large gong that had been attached to the rocky edge. Quelaag stared at it for several seconds before asking, oh, when did that get here? So he took the hammer and hit the gun with all he could. The gong rang loud and hard as it echoed through the air. Quelaag took his spot back next to Shelob and waited. And they didn't have to wait long as the ground began to shake and the lava started to bubble. Within seconds the gigantic head of Torchwick emerges from the lava and snorts a red-hit blast of air on them. Quelaag looked on in amazement at the sheer size of this creature, as he said aloud, so this is the legendary Torchwick, King of Dragons. Shelob bumped him with her thorax and Quelaag shook himself back to the present as he announced, oh, right. Your Majesty, Torchwick of the Dragons. I am Quelaag, servant and warrior to the goddess Ungoliant, and this is her daughter, Mistress Shelob. We're come to you to ask for your help. As you know, our lovely island is overrun with vile humans, but all of our efforts have been fruitless. Although you may not like it, we must do something about it before they take over. Mistress Shelob has crafted a plan that can only work with you. Once again Shelob spoke first, with Torchwick's huge eyes staring at her. When she finished her speech, the eyes lay on Quelaag, who shivered under the immense pressure and power they held. He then took the web pouch and opening it up he showed the contents, where he announced, as you can see, here is proof from Lady Ungoliant of her desire to collaborate with you. Will you join us? Torchwick snorted and then roared into the air for a long time. Not understanding the meaning, Quelaag turned to Shelob and inquired, does that mean yes, mistress? Shelob nods in confirmation, and Torchwick suddenly takes the web pouch into his mouth and swallows it whole. He dives back into the volcano, leaving the two spiders alone for a long time. After nearly an hour of waiting, Torchwick re-emerged from the lava and produces a clutch of eggs from his mouth onto the solid ground. The eggs were very strange looking, as they had soft and nearly clear shells like they had been hard-boiled. A black liquid swirled on the inside, and each egg was around the size of a gold ball. Quelaag smiles at the eggs, his wide grin showing off the grey teeth on his human half as his spider half grinning with equal excitement with glowing red teeth. He giggled ever so slightly before saying to the dragon, oh, thank you, your Majesty, thank you. Before he could break out into full-blown maniacal laughter, a much smaller spider crawled up beside him and made its way up his thorax, gaining his full attention. Quelaag asked as the spider spoke to him, what's that, little one? Oh, what perfect timing. Mistress, I just got word that we can put your idea to the test. Our siblings have captured some new humans for testing. Shall we? He offered to the larger spider beside him as he collected the many new eggs. Later on, in a deep cave hidden away from the wider island, Quelaag and Shelob stood by and observed the sight of many spiders crawling around the walls as they restrained many human captives in silk. All of them were pathetically trying to free themselves. Quelaag approached one particularly squirmy one and he snapped at him in response. Let me go. Let me go, you eight-legged freaks, he yelled at the man spider. Quelaag chuckled at his actions and petting his head he told the man, oh hush. Now little one, you should feel honored, not spew that nasty bile you call words. You and your friends are about to become a part of two of the greatest powers in all of Pacifica, and all crafted from the beautiful mind of Mistress Shelob. Go fuck yourself and your giant spider. The man hisses at him with venom. I'd like to, trust you me, Quelaag said back in a whisper, making the man cringe. At him, Quelaag cleared his throat and then told him, anyway, you are about to become impregnated with new and wonderful beings from both the flesh of the goddess Ungoliant and the ovipositor of King Torch Wick. I'm a dude, he yelled back after his mind went blank. Quelaag laughs at his response and further explains, oh, I don't mean impregnate. In the literal sense. I mean in the something growing within your body. What? No fucking way. Like hell, I'll let that happen. The man refuses firmly, as he tries even harder to break free. Quelaag then takes an egg from the pile and says, I'm afraid you don't have a choice. Now, be a good little human. He then grabs the man's jaw, squeezing it hard to force it open and tells him, and say ah. However, the man fights back with all his might to shake his head free, making it harder for Quelaag to insert the egg into his mouth. Quelaag tries many times, but the man keeps trying to wiggle away, and even if he gets the egg in, he spits out quickly. Oh, for goodness sake. Please don't make this any harder than it has to be, he demands as the man tries even harder. Eventually, he gets fed up with this and asks, with a huff, very well. Mistress Shelob, would you be so kind? Shelob obliged and walked over to the man, and with one swift motion she bit the man's neck, and all at once he went limp. Seeing this, Quelaag says, thank you, mistress. Approaching the limp man, Quelaag picked up his head, staring at his blink and rapidly moving eyes before letting it drop again to test. After seeing the results, Quelaag asked, you can't move a thing, can you? Good, it'll make this next part all the easier. And the best part is you'll lose the feeling of pain long before they hatch, but just before the venom should turn your innards into soup. He then took the egg into his hand once more and stuffed it into his mouth before forcing it down his throat where it lay in his stomach. Then, the only thing left to do was wait. It only took a few hours, but signs of the process were on full display, as the limp people all began to move about like uncontrollable puppets. Quelaag rubbed his hands in delight as he watched with both heads grinning at the sight. It's hatching. It's hatching, he yelled as he laughed maniacally, and Shelob observed in silent intrigue. Suddenly the stomach area of the men began to tent, and in a few seconds a small, long creature burst out and screamed their first breath of air. Seeing this, Quelaag laughed in a manic way while announcing, it's alive. And it's so beautiful, he then walked up to the heart man where he held out his hands for the little scaly creature that slithered out of its hope while coiling itself in his hands. He cooed at the creature and said, hello, little one. Aren't you a little fighter? Now run along, back inside your warm cocoon and eat. And don't stop till there's nothing left, he told the little thing as it slithered back into the warm body where eating sounds could be heard from within. After about a day of watching, the worms ate their history bodies and grew exponentially until they had sextupled in size. After they finished their meals, they began to secrete a strange mucus around their bodies, and once it was thick enough they began to change within them, growing a more complex body with arms and legs. Eventually, they broke free of their cocoons with their new limbs and tore out with their teeth. Oh ho ho ho. It's growing. It's growing, Quelaag exclaimed in excitement as he watched the hatchings break free. As they stood up on 2 feet, Quelaag announced, it's beautiful. Beautiful. It looks like a dragon. He trails off his excitement as fast as it came when he sees the result looking more like a small human-sized humanoid dragon rather than what they expected. They were all different colors but had the same appearance. Bipeds with digitigrade fingers, long tails, wings, and a full dragon head complete with sharp teeth, horns, and ear fins. Seeing the new creations, disappointment took over Quelaag as he stamped his feet and moaned, oh, man. I was hoping they'd come out looking like spiders. I was expecting something like the Jirogumo or Ushioni that's created from your mother's flesh when mixed with humans. Then again, we do use dead bodies for those, and King Torch Wick's main attribute is to manipulate the genomic structure of the things he makes, thus making them very susceptible to even the smallest of changes. So I guess his genes won over the goddess. What a bummer. As he sighed at this revelation, he decided to take it in stride nonetheless. He observed the human dragons as they looked around the dark cave and began to test their new hands and legs. The only one not doing anything was a larger red one that was staring directly at Quelaag and taking in every word he spoke. This one came out of the person Quelaag impregnated first. Tilting his head to the side, watching as the red one copied him, he admitted, still. Though, they are everything as you said they'd be, mistress, and just as handsome. I wonder if they'll pass this next part. Shelob said nothing but from the air. She gave off next to him. He could feel as though she agreed. Quelaag stood before the human dragons and announced loudly, right hand up. When they obeyed, he said, left hand up. Again they obeyed and Quelaag told them, spin around. One time more they listened, and once more they are told. Wings spread and tail straight. Quelaag smiles at this and says to Shelob, they listen to commands perfectly and their motor skills are already so advanced. He straightened himself up and said, let's see the next part. Now, morph. This time the human dragons paused as if trying to figure out what he meant or what to do. Soon they all closed their eyes and balled their hands as they appeared to be trying to take a huge poo. But instead of defecation they began to change shape and color, and before you knew it they all took the forms of the people they were when first born, only naked. Quelaag clapped his hands in excitement, a huge smile on his face as he told them. Perfect. Now speak. Let me hear your voice. Let. The dragon began to speak in a raspy tone. Me. They all tried to sound out the Y's more precisely. Let me hear your voice. They all said each word one at a time to pronounce them correctly, only for everyone to be shocked when the larger red one spoke in a perfect copy of the man's voice. Let me hear your voice. Perfect. Perfect. They came out even better than you imagined, mistress. Quelaag praised the giant spider behind him who also appeared proud. He then turned to the red one as he morphed back to his natural form and ran up to him while trying to hold its face, only for the dragon to try and bite his hands. Attempt that wasn't reciprocated with punishment but praise as he held the dragon's face anyway and stated, and you, let me get a good look at you. Oh ho ho ho. Aren't you handsome? Strong, bold, and quite vicious. If I'm not mistaken, I saw you trying to eat your other siblings' food. You're quite dominant. I say we should make him the leader. What say you, mistress? Shelob clicked and hissed in response as Quelaag answered. A name? Oh, you're right. If he is to be the leader, then he should have a name. Quelaag stepped back to look at the new creature, and after a bit of thinking he said, with a smile, how about Alpha, the first of the half-dragons? He told the dragon, who appeared to like the name alongside Shelob as Quelaag looked back over to the small pile of unused eggs ready to be implanted. CH-87, homesick. Good morning Izuku and Eri. Egon cheerfully greeted the two kids as they stared mindlessly at one of the huge windows. Noticing their lack of response as he passed by, he stopped, backtracked, and said, kids. Still no response as they both continued to stare out over the sky. So he changed tactics and yelled, hey. Huh. What dash? Oh. Good morning, Professor. Nice weather we're having. They both said together in a fluffy daze. Narrowing his eyes at the two children, Egon firmly told them, okay, fess up. You two have been sitting by nearly every window, every day, for over a week. What's eating you kids? Don't tell me you hung up about those new half-dragons on Pacifica that can turn into anyone they eat. 'Cause I sure am, he said with a distant existential glaze. The two kids stared at him for a moment before Izuku answered, it's nothing. Breaking out of his trance, Egon told him with a tone of disbelief, you know that ain't gonna fly with me. The two of them tried and failed to pass it off, but Egon wouldn't budge or fall for it, so they both caved into his demands. Izuku sat on the windowsill with Eri in his arms as he began. Fine, we'll tell you, but it's silly, Eri finished for him, hiding her face in embarrassment. Egon gave a sideways pout and petted her hair as he assured her, there's nothing silly about how you feel or what thoughts are running through your head. Unless you're thinking of murder, in that case, you'll be institutionalized. Izuku shoots him a look for that comment and Egon ignores him while taking a seat beside him. When he does, Eri wastes no time sitting in his lap. Now tell me what's bugging you two, he asked them. Izuku rubs his head and eventually comes clean as he vaguely explains, I don't. No, we've got this full ache in our bodies every time we look out the windows. And no matter what we do, we can't pull ourselves away or stop staring. Egon thought about this for a moment before coming to a conclusion and telling them, sounds like you two are homesick. Homesick? Is that a disease? Eri asked in a mix of curiosity and concern. Egon stroked her head again and explained to assure her. No, Eri. Homesickness is just a term for those people who have been away from their house for too long and feel sad about being away from its familiar comforts. Eri looked down at the floor and told Egon with a saddened tone, It's true. I like it. Here, I'm still with you, and Log, and Pete, and I can see Izuku and Ms. Josie more often. But I miss your house. It's nice and cozy. Izuku sighs as he leans back to glance out the window to add, I'll admit. I miss home too. I miss Mom, her cooking. Heck, I even miss my old room that used to be filled with my longtime hyperfixation. Egon smiled in understanding and said while hugging them both close to him, I know how you two feel. Are you also homesick, Egon? Eri inquired. Egon gives her a nod and says, Of course I am, Eri. That was my childhood home. I was born and raised there. With all seriousness to the born part. Egon, Izuku scolded him. Egon rolls his eyes and explains to the two kids, My point is, I do miss it a lot and I wish I could go back. But right now that's not in the cards for us. He holds the two children so they look at him and he says in a firm yet serious tone, The two of you both know how much danger we are in. We were lucky to have been able to stay in our houses for as long as we did. But our enemies are starting to grow and I think they'll keep growing. We've got tons of secrets, but they won't stay that way forever. Our best bet right now is to stay here until we can take them down or gain enough power to the point we can walk freely without fear. He then sits back with both in his arms sighs and tells them, I wish I could give something more comforting, but that the cards life has felt us and we got to play them or fold. What happens if we fold? Eri asked him. Izuku knew what Egon meant by fold, but he didn't want to tell the young girl. She has been through too much to not assure her safety within the facility. So he just continues to put hope in her heart. He cups her face and with a smile tells her, Don't worry, that's never gonna happen. He then sits back against the window and tells the two of them, and besides, we still have each other, only for their moment of peace to be interpreted by a loud set of honks and something trying to bite Egon. He looks down and sees a very angry-looking Pete nipping at his foot. He laughs as he scoops the bird onto his foot and then tops it over to his lap where he says, And you too, Pete. CH-88, to hell with you. Professor. Professor, Melissa exclaimed as she bolted into Egon's office. Egon, who was about to take a sip of his morning coffee, sat up straight as he exclaimed back in surprise, Yes, Melissa. What is it? You sure seem excited. I just made the scientific breakthrough of the century, she half-yelled while jumping up and down with excitement. That's quite a statement. What did you do? Egon asked calmly. Follow me, follow me, follow me, the girl demanded in joy as she grabbed the man's wrist and yanked him out of his office, causing him to nearly trip over his feet. As they left, they nearly ran into Izuku, who was stopping by Egon's office. Seeing the excitement, he dropped what he was doing and ran out with them, following close on their tails until they came into the sound division. In one of the testing chambers, stationed behind a very protected observation room, were Dr. Wily and Professor Hankoyo. After releasing the flustered man, who had to put himself back together, and Izuku, who managed to catch up, she stood beside the two men, while standing by the control panel. Professor Hankoy, Dr. Wily, and I have worked with our scientific geniuses together to create this. She then pressed a button on the control panel, and the dark mirror disappeared from the observation window where a very large and complex machine stood in the testing chamber, as she exclaimed, Toda. Wow, what is it? Izuku and Egon asked at the same time. It's called the IDPC, or Interdimensional Portal Creator, Melissa told them excitedly. Egon and Izuku froze up for a moment before Egon shook himself and stated, Wait, back up for a second. Are you trying to tell me that the three of you have managed to unlock and break the bounds of the space-time continuum? Hankoyo nodded at his dissection and told them, Yes, but it was mostly young Melissa's doing. We just helped with our specific fields of expertise. Speak for yourself, Snakehead. Wily grumbled at him as he tried to take center stage to take credit for the machine, but he brushed aside as Izuku asked, So where does it lead? I have no idea. We just tried a bunch of random coordinates until one of them worked, Melissa admitted. We went through thousands of different combinations. Hankyo stated as he leaned against the control panel to wipe his head with a wet rag. Even Wiley looked pale and pooped. But Melissa assured them both as she followed up saying, "But not to worry, we're kept the rift small and inside this highly modified protective testing chamber and it will only stay open for a short time. We're gonna send this drone through to get pictures and videos," she told them while holding up a small circular drone. "Look at you. Take every precaution possible." Egon congratulated her while ruffling her head, only to look at his other employees and Izuku while stating, "I only wish more of you would do the same. All I have to do is send the drone through the opening and we can see where it goes," she told him as she lifted a latch to send the drone inside. There it sprouted small legs and began to walk before sprouting a propeller and flying toward the machine where Melissa pushed a seemingly random assortment of buttons, causing the machine to turn on and the portal to open. It was red, steamy, small, and very hot. It was so hot that the temperature in the area caused the room to increase by 20 degrees. Once open, the drone flew inside and all the scientist had to do was wait it out. However, they didn't have to wait long for anything to happen as the machine started to buzz and spark up before suddenly appearing to cause the portal to collapse for a moment, but only for a moment as the portal reopened to a graduation size. As everyone started at this, Izuku inquired in a small voice, "I'm guessing that's not part of the test." "No," Melissa answered. "Quick, turn it off," Egon shouted. "I can't. Something went wrong with the outer controls," Wiley exclaimed back as he and Hankyo tried to rapidly use the control panel to turn it off. "Please tell me you have a failsafe or an emergency off switch," Izuku exclaimed. "Yes, but it's on the machine," Melissa told him. "Of course it is," Izuku and Egon shouted at the same time. "Less talk and more action," Hankyo called out to them as he had already gotten the test chamber door open and was running inside with Melissa. All the scientists ran inside the scorching hot room as Melissa, Wiley, and Hankyo ran around the machine pulling levels, twisting knobs, and hitting buttons on every possible part of it. But even after they stopped, the portal was still going as strong as it was before. "What the heck? This thing should have turned off the portal. Why is it still running?" Wiley yelled. "Something must be keeping it open," Melissa guessed. Before they could do anything else, the portal began to vibrate at a strange frequency and pulsate into a strange circular shape before a strange shape was seen from within. "What is it?" Izuku asked while staring into the portal. Suddenly a large figure did a Superman dive and fell through the portal, landing and sliding against the metal floor. The person looked like some kind of devil man at the very first glance. "What the dash?" Egon began to ask, only for the devil man to turn around and yell while pointing at the portal. "Close it. Close it now." "I'm trying," Melissa yelled as she was still trying to get the machine to stop. "Hurry, before he comes through," the devil man yelled as he shifted to his butt and slid back from the opening. Izuku prompted only for his question to be answered as an even larger and uglier devil man grabbed the edge of the portal and pulled itself out before roaring at the scientist. The new devil had an upright boy with red skin, horns, a tail, bat wings, jagged teeth, hooved feet, a flame on its head, bulging muscles, yellowed eyes with no pupil, no ears, no nose, and carrying a flaming whip in its hands while standing at over 10 foot tall. "Holy shit. Defense measures activate all kill protocols," Izuku yelled while pointing at the devil creature. Suddenly several different weapons sprung up from every possible place and began to unleash a hailstorm of firepower on the creature, only for it to shrug the bullets off until the next round of much more powerful weapons came out. Energy bombs blasted the monster and began to do damage as it screeched in pain, even driving it back. That is until the plasma cannons finally warped up and blasted the monster with 4 beams to several parts of its body, cutting straight through its flesh and causing it to get flung back into the portal. "Got it," Melissa cried as she finally managed to turn the machine off. Everyone watched in relief and joy as the portal shrunk down till it disappeared, the machine overheating and shutting down, while the room cooled off. Rest couldn't be attained right away as the devilish person was still standing in the room with the scientist and yelled something shocking. "Freedom," he screams while shooting his arms into the air before falling to Izuku's feet and exclaiming in a yell, "Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You've saved me." Izuku, who was just as confused and freaked out as everyone else, asked the one question they were all thinking. I'm grateful for your gratitude. But who in the hell are you and where in the hell did you come from? Hell, of course, the devilish man said while bringing his head up from the ground, saying it like the answer was obvious. More specifically, the ring. Wrath, he added, causing even more confusion to circle the room. But before things could spiral any further, and with Izuku looking ready to blue screen, Egon took the lead and told the devilish man, Okay, back up for a moment. We're going to need way more context and full explanation. So let me see if I understand this correctly. The portal that we opened was a portal to hell. Like actual hell, the place where all evil people go. And you're a demon from hell? Egon asked while trying to absorb all this info he was just told. He, Izuku, and the devilish man were sitting inside one of the meeting rooms, where the devilish man told him some unbelievable and earth-shattering news. The devilish man looked much like the other demon that came through the portal earlier, but with key differences. He was shorter, only 8 foot tall, with a very human face and long black hair, but all other features stayed the same. Technically, I'm only half demon, but yeah, the devilish man explained. Egon blinked a few times and then stated while looking at the man. So if there's hell, then that means there's also heaven. So the afterlife isn't just a thinly veiled concept made by humans through blind faith and hope for something better, but real truth. The man replied while looking confused by his confusion. That's what I just explained. Egon took off his glasses, setting them on the table as he put the back of his hand to his head while saying, I think I'm gonna pass out. But Izuku grabbed and held him up while stating firmly, Please don't, we don't have a defibrillator nearby. I'm guessing humans nowadays are of little faith, the devilish man inferred. This comment got Egon's attention and insulted him as he proclaimed back, Little faith. I'm of very good faith and very connected to the gods. To this, the devilish man chuckled a bit, making Egon more insulted as he demanded, What's so funny? After calming himself, the devilish man told him, Oh sorry, it's just that you said gods, as in plural, like you think there's more than one. Both scientists stare in shock at what they were just told, and Egon said like he was having a crisis. Are you trying to tell me that my faith was incorrect and that the Judeo-Christianity was correct the whole time? The devilish man rubbed his head as he awkwardly and vaguely answered, Yes. And no. The gods that you are thinking of were Nephilim posing as gods. Nafahu now? Egon asked. Half angel and half human, but I'll explain later. The devilish man dropped the subject. Seeing as they were getting off topic, Izuku chimed in and asked, You said before that you were half demon. What exactly are you? I'm what you would call a cambion. I'm the result of when an archdemon does the dirty with a human, he explained. Do you have a name we can call you? Izuku inquired, realizing they had forgotten to exchange pleasantries. Are you evil? Egon butted in right away. Egon, Izuku scolded the man. Egon shot his protege a look and exclaimed back, His half-demon and demons are evil. What do you want me to say? How's the weather in hell? The devilish man chuckled at their bickering and answered, The weather is always terrible in hell, and I don't resent you for thinking I'm as evil as the rest of my kin. He then took a saddened tone and explained, As for my name, I don't have one, only a number. To which he showed a set of strange symbols edged upon his neck. Are you a slave? Izuku blurted out before he could realize what he was asking. Was a slave, but no more thanks to you. He corrected him happily while giving him a thankful smile. But if you want to call me something, you can just call me Cambion, he offered. Izuku frowned at this and told him, That's terrible, that would be like naming your dog, Woof. Izuku then thought for a moment and offered, How about Dante? He peeked up at this and standing on his seat he proclaimed, I like the sound of it. Very well, from this day forth I will be known as Dante. Egon nudged Izuku and whispered, Little on the nose, isn't it? You got a better suggestion, Izuku whispered back. Egon opened his mouth to reply, then closed it, then opened it again only to fail. Once more. So he just whispered back to him, I'm guessing Lucifer is out of the question. To which Izuku shot him a look. So Dante, are there more like you in hell? Izuku asked the man. Dante nodded and explained, Unfortunately, yes, but our numbers are thinning significantly. Unlike demons, who are completely immortal, Cambion is only long Lived. And how old are you? Egon prompted him. Dante thought this over to himself, then answered, not so sure. Time is hard to tell. In hell, but if I had to guess, I'd say about 2000-ish years. Egon looked like he wanted to faint, and Izuku had to take off his glasses to wipe the cold sweat from his face as he tried to absorb all of this. So after the two of them managed to calm down a bit, Egon inquired, half lucid, how did you even come to be? Like, how were you born? On this, Dante had to think much longer and harder, and once he collected his thoughts he told them, well, my mother was a witch and made a pact with a demon to gain power in exchange for her firstborn child. I was born 9 months later and sold to my demon dad in slavery. Both blinked at this news. Izuku followed up on Egon and asked, wait, does that mean more like you could exist on Earth? Dante shook his head and answered, not a chance. Cambion like me has a 1 in 100 chance of being born. Usually, when humans get down with demons, their children end up having serious mental or physical deformities. This fact is interesting, and the two of them jotted this side note down for future research. And Dante continued to explain, besides, humans haven't had the power to reach into hell in ages. Anyone saying they can is lying. And because of the conditions in hell, many Cambion are killed frequently. I'm just one of a spare few. Well, that's good to hear, Egon blurted out, only to realize his mistake and backtrack while saying, the fact that demons aren't amongst us, not what you said before about being slaves and your kin dying often. Sorry. Dante waved off his apology and assured him, it's okay. I was never close with the others. So that demon who tried to follow you through the portal, who was he? Izuku asked. My Slava. Dante admitted a bit too casually. Both looked shocked at this, then remembered what happened, and Izuku said, hope we killed him. Dante sighs and tells them, it takes more than that to put a pure-blooded first-generation demon down for good, but he will be the laughing stock of hell for centuries on end. One more question. You've already established that heaven and hell exist, but which depictions of them are true? Egon inquired, holding the recorder a bit closer to him. Dante smiled and explained, all of them. Heaven and hell are reflections of the human mind. The landscape changes to best comfort or torture the souls within. Then Izuku asked the biggest question of all, one he didn't want to but had to. So, he took a deep breath and asked, so Dante, what are you going to do from here? Dante opened his mouth to answer but stopped. The wheels in his head began to turn, but things came out. Eventually, a depressed look came upon his face as he admitted sadly, you know, I've never thought of it. My only desire was to escape hell. Now that I'm out, I have no idea what to do. I have so much knowledge of Earth but no experience. Izuku and Egon thought of a solution for a while until Egon rambled out, then, you can stay here. Surprised by this, Dante asked, I can. He can. Izuku asked with equal surprise and concern. Shooting him a look, Egon exclaimed, yes, he can. Plus we really can't let you go gallivanting in public. If the world knew that heaven and hell were real, whether directly or indirectly from you, there would be an uproar. Plus, even though we live in a world of supernatural human abilities, you wouldn't be able to blend in that well as a dash dot. Before finishing that though, he covered the young teen's eyes, before saying while trying not to tail his own eyes down, mostly naked demon man. Having said this, it was apparent that Dante came through with very little clothing on. He only wore a loincloth that left very little for the imagination. That's no problem. I can change, Dante told him. Change what? Egon questions back, only to have his question answered when Dante begins to shrink down to a more modest size, his huge horns shrinking until they were numbing, his bright red skin losing most of its vibrance, his tail becoming shorter and less deadly looking, his wings reabsorbed into his back, and his muscles becoming far less bulky. When it finally stopped, Dante appeared like any normal human but with a few devilish features. Izuku and Egon blinked in surprise at this unusual ability as Egon commented, oh, that's handy. By the way, what did you mean by supernatural? Dante inquired. About a century ago, these things called quirks appeared in humans all across the world, giving them superpowers. Lots of fighting happened, a few bloody wars, population decline, genocide, blah blah blah. And here we are now, Egon. explained the vague origin of quirks while also producing crystals from his hands. To show him. Now it was Dante's turn to look in surprise as he sat in slack jaws silent about the simple feat that Egon did. After he absorbed this information, he exclaimed, "Sheesh. A lot has changed on Earth from what I was last told. Last time, humans were still exploring the greater world. However, that does explain the influx of souls 100 years ago. That was a busy time. Well set up living quarters and something for you to do around here. For now, just take it easy," Izuku told him as he and Egon stood up, collected their things, and made their way out the door. Just before they left, Dante gave one last sigh of relief as he said, "Thank you again for your kindness." Once they left the meeting room, the two scientists met up with the other three scientists present for the appearance of Dante in the hallway behind the one-way mirror, watching the meeting go down. Once things settled, Egan got right into it and stated in a low-hissed tone, "Okay, people listen closely." Everyone did so, and he took a deep breath before telling them, "As you heard, we just opened a real can of worms here, but we can keep it blocked off to this area. We tell no one about what any of us saw or discovered. If word of this breaks out, it would be catastrophic. So delete those coordinates and wipe it from your mind." But those coordinates were going to be used to discover what process we need, Melissa nervously pointed out. Egon sighs while slapping his face and tells her, "Okay, discover the process, then wipe it from your mind." "What if we discover coordinates to heaven?" Hankoyo inquires. This raises the hairs on everyone's heads at this thought. If they could open a portal to hell, then who's to say heaven isn't off the table of possibilities? Who's to say they couldn't make an opening to a place where eldritch monsters lair outside of time, space, and mortal comprehension? That thought sent shivers down all their spines. "Same thing with hell," Egon quickly stated, getting everyone's attention back. "No one but we can know and forget it." He finished off as they all nodded and went off to secure this deep dark secret. CH-89, make a park. Izuku stood on a small hill that overlooked an island that was currently under heavy construction and terraforming. This island was not a naturally occurring one in the ocean of the Atlantic, but instead another man-made one. This new island was going to be the home base of the new Triassic Park. Construction was able to start almost immediately after the island had been created, and Izuku was looking over in pride at everything going on. It was nice to see both humans and machines working together in order to make something amazing, and it was also nice to be continuing to use the services of Uraraka Construction Company. Before he could continue to marvel at his creation, he got a call on his phone that he picked up and heard the voice of Dr. Hemmons on the other end. "Dr. Midoriya, how is the island coming along?" the old man cheerfully asked. On the other end of the line, Izuku smiled and informed him, "The modified island bloom has reached its epoch, reaching full size, and the construction and terraforming crew are hard at work as we speak." The old man gave a jovial chuckle and said back, "Excellent. Once you have a warp pad made, I will begin to send over the material with your robots." "Good to hear, Dr. Hammond. I'll check on the progress of the dinosaurs," Izuku told him before hanging up and dialing a new number. As it rang, he looked over to see a warp pad quickly being installed, and once it was answered, Izuku asked, "Professor Genus, how are the dinosaurs coming along?" "Perfectly. I already have 37 babies from different spices at the ready, with another 28 on the way, all from different parts of history," he answered back happily as the sound of baby dinosaur sounds came in the background. "By the way, we're showed some of our investors the dinosaurs, and you wouldn't believe the reactions and comments I got," he told him with an irritated tone and an eye roll that could be felt through the phone signal. Izuku signs inwardly and says, "Let me guess. They were surprised to see something that didn't have its skin pulled over its skeleton, something with lips, feathers, and bigger than what they were." He could hear Genus shaking his head in agreement as he exclaimed, "Exactly. Bigger, louder, more teeth. Like a lion with a roar as loud as it can when trying to sneak up on prey that's bigger, stronger, and faster than they are." They said they weren't cool enough. They don't want feathers on an aquatic dinosaur, and I want hair on a naked mole rat, but we all can't make nature do our bidding. Now can we? Who do they think they are? God. That's just how they look. Genus paused for a moment before admitting in a small tone, "Now that I say it out loud, we kinda Can. I understand your frustration. But that's what this park is for. Entertainment and education. Izuku tried to assure him. Genus gave a loud groan before saying, for big-time investors, you'd think they'd have a bit more of the last thing. With that they hung up as the morph pad was activated and several dozen crews with enormous amounts of building material came through. Sometime later, as land was being leveled out for buildings, Izuku got another call. On his phone. Going to a quieter spot, he answered it and heard Josie on the other end say, Dr. Midoriya, you just got a call from the American government. Izuku was surprised by this news and stated back, kinda surprised no other countries have contacted us by now. What do they want? A chance to shove more prisoners on Pacifica like Russia tried to do with that missile threat. Josie shook her head on the other end and answered, no sir. They want to buy the technology and techniques for making dinosaurs. Izuku sighs in exasperation at this and grips. No doubt genetically modified. Dinosaurs used for war is the goal. Tell them no, and if they ask again, tell them. We'll leak why Pearl Harbor was a success during World War II. Yes, sir, Josie replied before hanging up. 1 month later. Izuku walked down one of the finished roads and admired the hard work done in such a short time. The park was already at 80% completion. It was almost hard to believe this place was little more than a stretch of ocean not long ago, and now was a hustling and bustling theme park already chock full of dinosaurs. He was proud to see it come to fruition, much like the facilities and all the changes and discoveries he's made. While he was lost in his mind, he saw a familiar face walking and calling out to him. It was Hammond, and he said to him, once he got close enough, Dr. Midoriya, it is so good to see you face to face. Dr. Hammond. Likewise, Izuku greeted back with a bow. Hammond slung his arm around the teen's shoulder as the two of them looked over the park where the old man told him, isn't it beautiful? And to think this was just another stretch of open ocean in the Atlantic. Izuku smiled lightly at the sight and replied in agreement, it is quite something. I think we should both feel proud of what we've done here. In just a few more weeks, the park will be open to the public. And I truly couldn't have done it without your amazing support, science, and ancient technology. Hammond thanked him while slapping his back. The two of them started to walk together and the old man prompted, so tell me, what's your favorite exhibit to be shown? It's two things, the aviary and the… Izuku trailed off with his cheeks dusting red with embarrassment. T-Rex, Hammond guessed as Izuku looked away to hide his grinning face. Still, a child at heart I see, Hammond says with a chuckle. Technically I am still a child, Izuku told him, making Hammond laugh even harder. Then let us both be children for a moment, he said as he motioned for them to go towards the T-Rex exhibit. A few weeks later, Izuku stood before a large crowd of reporters in front of the facility building where a large floating screen stood behind him. Clearing his throat, he said into the mic as pictures flashed around him, ladies and gentlemen of the press, it is with great honor that I come to you to display what is perhaps one of history's greatest achievements. But NIP can't take full credit for this. This project, both funded and promoted, has been the work of the amazing Dr. Thomas Hammond, who I will allow to present it to you all. People clapped as the old man carefully made his way up the stage and took the mic from Izuku. Cameras flashed as the man took off his hat and set his cane beside the podium. He coughed into the mic and then said to the crowd, thank you, Dr. Midoriya, staff of NIP, people of the press. For nearly my entire life, I have had one single dream. A dream I'm sure many of you had in your first dinosaur movie, book, or theoretical documentary. Bring long-extinct giants to our modern era. And through many years I have finally made that dream a reality. He motions to the floating board behind him where a sequence of pictures came up, showing the entryway to the park, as he said, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the world's first live dinosaur theme park, Triassic Park. More pictures flashed on the screen and Hammond gave a brief description behind each one. Come and view the rolling mountains, run through the long fields, swim in the lagoon, try out several restaurants and rides. And most of all, come see real-life dinosaurs. As he says all this, Izuku sneakily comes back onto the stage and from behind, places a baby T-Rex in his hand, which the old man holds out in front of him as he says, as of now, We have 50 different species of dinosaur and other extinct creatures. From all over Earth's history with more on the way. Only at Triassic Park. With that, the crowd went crazy with pictures and questions as the windy baby began to cry and screech from the bright light and loud sounds. CH90, meet the team. Meanwhile, deep within one of the many meeting rooms of the NIP facility, 4 unusual characters sat around a table waiting for something to happen. They had all come under the pertinence of hearing something they wanted. One at a time they all awkwardly entered and took a seat away from one another, unsure of the other people or what was happening. There were 4 people in total, 1 woman, and 3 men. One of the men was older, and one of them was much younger. The older man was stroking his hand as he stared at the door. The younger man was doing something on his phone. The last man was staring up at the ceiling, and the woman was trying to keep herself occupied with her pet owl. I can't believe I agreed to this, the man staring at the ceiling said as he groaned. In irritation. Speak for yourself. I don't think any of us expected to agree. The woman shot back, not looking at him and teasing her bird. Who would have thought that such highly regarded people would want me again? The older man stated with whimsy and joy in his voice that he tried to keep under wraps. The first man suddenly got annoyed at him and spat. Oh, shut it, Gramps. They're just a bunch of scientists. For all we know, they want us for an experiment of some kind. Having prior experience with him, as they were the first 2 to arrive, the woman narrows her eyes at him with her owl and states, do you always have to be such a Debbie Downer? Do you have to keep that smelly bird with you? The man shoots back. My quirk can't work without him. The woman explodes on him as the owl hisses. Seeing the 2 bicker, the old man turned to the young man and inquired, You're quiet. I have nothing to say. The young man stated simply without looking up from his phone. Oh, the quiet kid. How scary. What, you shoot up a school or something? The first man teases, trying and failing to get a rise out of him. What is wrong with you? The older man states, now becoming irritated by the other man. The first man coughs loudly a few times before telling them, it comes when you are terminally ill. So does anyone know what horrors await us? They are only horrors if you fear them. A new voice chimed in as they all looked to the door to see a scientist standing there with a big smile. None of them said a word from how surprised they were, so the first man demanded, Who the hell are you? The scientist bowed and said, My name is Dr. Enema Genus, head researcher of the creature division here at NIP, and I'm the one who brought you all together. You have? They all asked in unison. What for? The first man inquired suspiciously. Genus smiles as he approaches him and states, Keanu Fee, you are terminally ill, with an unknown disease that is slowly turning you into a vegetable. Keanu was a sickly pale Japanese man of medium height, short black hair, and standing around 5 feet 5 inches. His brown eyes were dull and bloodshot, adding to his sickly and gaunt appearance. He wore a smile outfit consisting of a sweatshirt, brown pants, and plain beige shoes. His quirk was called King of Arms. He could pick up any weapon he saw and could use it as if he were practicing with it his whole life. This also extends to things that aren't classified as weapons, as he can pick up anything and know how to use it as a weapon. Genus turned to the only woman and stated, Ray Suzhei, you were once the lookout for a big criminal organization many years ago but got busted and served your sentence in prison. By the way, sorry about what happened to your previous bird. Ray was a woman around the age of 40, standing at 5 feet even, with long dark brown hair dyed blonde, green eyes, with a natural hourglass figure. She had a hard gaze on her face like someone worn by years of hard experience. She wore a blue shirt, blue jeans, and black shoes, and carried a barn owl with her. Her quirk, eagle eyes, allows her to see and hear through the animal she is bonded to. Genus goes to the older man and explains, Fujitora Naka, you were once a proud soldier serving your country until you did something that hindered the success of victory in the name of civilian lives and your men, thus causing you to be dishonorably discharged. Fujitora was an older man around the age of 60, standing well over 7 foot tall and built like a mountain. His short white hair and facial hair complemented his chiseled old man look nicely with a 3-piece suit to pull it all together. His quirk was called Hound Master, which gives him the ability to control any canine animal to any extent he wants apart from self-elimination. Genus turns to the last person, the young man, and trails off as he says, "And Kai. Toy, you're just a loser." Kai was a young man no older than 20 and standing at roughly 6 feet even, with a skinny build, long greasy black hair that covered his tired and empty eyes, wearing an outfit composed of worn, baggy, ripped clothing, and smelling bad. His quirk was called Share and Gift, which gave him the ability to give and receive the damage and effects from others such as pain, pleasure, healing, buffs, and so on. So, what's the point of knowing our names and bringing up our backgrounds for the world to know? Cone demanded impatiently. I feel like there's some kind of catch, Ray whispered to her owl, to which it nodded. To make a long story short, I need a team to form a sort of suicide squad. I won't lie, you were chosen cause you are all expendable and have nothing left to lose in life, Genus explained, sugarcoating nothing. And there it is, Ray whispered, making the owl narrow its eyes. Genus then put up his hand before anyone, aka Keanu, blew up at him. He explained, "Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to force you out into the front lines with nothing but your wits and a prayer. I intend to give you a new purpose, a new goal in life that you can achieve, something that can pull you out of the drag that you currently are now. And if that isn't your cup of tea, then you're more than welcome to leave," he said while offering the exit door they all entered from. However, not one of them moved an inch from their spots and planted themselves firmly in their seats. Things were awkward and silent for a long time until someone finally broke the ice. "Well, since I'm already here, I might as well hear you out. What exactly do you want from us? What is this suicide squad?" Keanu inquired. Clearing his throat, he motions to the projector, and using a laser pointer he tells them as the slide shows up. As I'm sure many of you know, NIP is credited for creating the new microcontinent known as Pacifica. We are also credited for inadvertently creating an entirely new species of animal known commonly as dragons. Unfortunately, before we could implement Pacifica's newest defense measures, poachers had come to the island and stolen eggs. But before he could continue, Keanu once again interrupted him and interpreted. Wait. I think I'm starting to see where this is all going. So you wanted to bring a team together, aka us, so we could go out and kill these dragons. And the only reason you chose us specifically was because we're all basically losers, right? We have no significance, so even if we die, it's not going to harm anyone, even to ourselves. That's the long and short of it. Genus agreed with a shrug. Things were silent amongst the four people as they all absorbed all this information. That is until Keanu slapped the table and proclaimed, "Well, I'm gonna die anyway, so fuck it. I'm in. I don't have many years left on this earth, so I'll join to hopefully regain my lost sense of duty and pride." Fujitora accepted. Ray sighs and says, "I've got nowhere else to go in this life with my criminal record. Count me in." "I'm in too," Kai agrees without showing any sign of emotion or looking up from his phone. Genus claps his hands and tells them, "Superb. Now before anything, we're going to start training you." "Training? What the heck do we need to do training for?" Ray asks him. "Only 2 of you are skilled in the art of combat. The other 2 aren't, and none of you know how to fight with each other. In addition, none of you have any knowledge of fighting dragons. I can't just send you out into the field and expect results. You need to learn about your quarry long before you can even consider trying to draw their blood. You're going to have many foes to face, and let me tell you, every one of them is different and more dangerous than the last." Genus warns them in a vague yet foreboding tone. "Is killing dragons our only option? Seems rather inhumane to kill a creature that was taken out of its previous natural environment and forced somewhere else." Fujitora asked aloud, showing concern and heartache in his tone and face. "Well, that's just what you do for all the dragons that are too wild and unpredictable. Apart from that, you will have missions and the ability to capture certain dragons alive," Genus explained before turning back to Keanu and telling him, "But before any of that, we have to get you all into tip-top shape. First off, Keanu, we are going to treat that illness of yours." Keanu snorted before letting out a short laugh and saying, If there was a cure for my ailment, don't you think I would have been the first one to take it by now? And what makes you think you have the cure? Here at NIP we, myself included, have done some pretty magnanimous and amazing things. Curing an unknown degenerative illness is no small issue for us. Your cure should be arriving very soon, Genus assured him, only to have his statement made true when Chopper entered the room on his tiny legs, holding something in one of his hands as he said to the man, "Professor, I brought the cure for dash dot." However, though he stopped when he saw all the other people present before his eyes trailed off to the sickly pale man where he said, "Oh hi, you must be Keanu. I'm Dr. Chopper and I'm here to give you the cure to your ailment." Chopper smiled as he held out the vial of strange orange liquid to the man. Unfortunately, the same sentiment was not given back as Keanu stared back blankly at the small creature like it was something never seen before. With his mind blank, he babbled out in confusion, "A tanuki." Chopper's friendly demeanor quickly shifted to anger as he morphed into his heavy point and grabbed the man's collar while yelling, "I'm a reindeer, you jerk. Now, drink." Chopper quickly forced the liquid down the man's throat as he stammered back and was unable to speak. The vial was shoved halfway into his mouth and he drank the contents to not suffocate. When he just finished it off, Chopper let him go. After coughing a bit as Chopper reverted to his brain point, Keanu noticed that he was breathing without any trouble, which surprised him. "Hey, I feel better," Keanu admitted as his color began to return. Chopper smiled at this and began to tell him, "That's good to hear. All we have to do is set you up on a weekly medical plan to dash dot." But he gets cut off by an increasingly joyful Keanu who starts to stage and flexes his body around while stating, "No, I mean like really good, like I can feel my strength returning to me. Haha, I feel like my old self. I feel amazing. You've cured me, thank you." "You're welcome," Chopper awkwardly says back, completely confused as the man hugs him. After being let go, the starstruck reindeer says under his breath, "That wasn't supposed to happen. Better reanalyze what's in this." After seeing him leave, Genus tells the new crew, "Well, I'm gonna set you all up with a small video to introduce you to your many tasks, tools, and weapons in the Dragon Hunters. I'll also be giving you a lecture on all the different types of dragons, and then after that, we will begin your training and then team training." With that, he leaves, ready to begin the training program for his new team. CH-91, A Change of Heart. As the newly formed Dragon Hunters were being formed in the office of Izuku, the young doctor suddenly got a call on his office phone, and without looking at the caller ID, he picked it up to hear Millicent on the other end tell him, "Sir, there is someone here to see you." Izuku stops what he's doing and plugs into the security cameras at the front desk. To his surprise and joy, it was Uraraka. More specifically, the only daughter of a family-owned construction company. He used an invisible scanner to make sure she was the real deal, and when it was confirmed, he sighed with relief. Taking the phone, he says, "Uraraka, send her up." He hung up, and in a few minutes, the girl entered his room looking a bit distraught. So he tried to be chipper and said kindly, "Hi Uraraka, how are you? Here to use our training facility or research the limits of your quirk?" "I'm fine," she said distantly, rubbing her arm as she looked off to the side. Before asking, "Listen, can I talk to you about something? It's kinda big, and I need someone smart, personable, and overall, my age." "Well, you've come to the right person," Izuku lightly joked with a chuckle, making her smile back. She took a deep breath before ranting off. "First, I just wanted to thank you again for using my parents' business time and time again. Because of that, they won't be in the red for years to come. They are thinking of retiring in a few years." "You're welcome. But what does that have to do with your problem?" Izuku asked, looking more curious as the conversation went on. "It's directly connected to it," she huffed in an aggravated tone before being told. "You see, the only reason I wanted to be a hero was because I heard they make a ton of money, and I was gonna use that money to help them retire. But because of your facility and its many projects it's given us, that is not an issue anymore. And now, I don't know if I want to continue with this path. My goal is achieved, and I've focused so much on that goal that I have no other backups. I'm in a rut," she lamented while leaning against his desk. Izuku frowned with her and admitted, "I'm sorry to hear that. But to be honest, the best advice I can give is for you to think long and hard about this. If this is something you still want to do, then do it. If not, then find something else in the meantime." This didn't help as the girl slumped further into herself, causing Izuku to think fast as he told her, Though if it were me in your shoes, I'd keep going. With your current plan of being a hero. It's a highly respected job and I believe you have the fortitude to do it. Also, it's a chance to help others, like what you wanted to do for your parents. Uraraka sat up straight and thought for a bit. She thought some more and after while a small smile crept onto her face as she stated with newfound enthusiasm. You know what? You're right. I should continue with this. I'll see it through to the end. I'll never be an All Might, but I can at least make a difference in a few people. Izuku smiles at her declaration and says, glad to hear it. She then turns back to him, a smile on her pink face as she confidently asks hey, listen, I know this might seem out of the blue, but since I have this newfound confidence and no fear, I wanted to ask if you'd wanted to go out on a date. Sometime. Uraraka. Izuku stammered in reply, a red dusting on his face. He looked down at the ground in thought before he told her, I'd love to, but no. This made Uraraka's demeanor go sideways as she mindlessly asked back. Really? Don't take it the wrong way, but I don't think I could see a healthy relationship with you. Izuku explained badly to her, making the girl look at him in shock. So, he backtracked and explained further. What I mean is, I'd be the unhealthy one in the relationship. I don't understand, she asks back, now looking baffled by the mixed signals and lack of explanation. Uraraka, you're a great person and I admire you, but I can't be with you cause. Izuku trailed off before begrudgingly admitting to her, because you're living my dream. The dream I always wanted, but never could have. I'd just be suppressing my jealousy and anger till it burst. I know myself better nowadays. I'd see you go out and do your job but never feel happy for you. I'm sorry, but we can't be together. They both stayed in a long awkward silence until Uraraka spoke up and nervously said, I'm sorry if I make you feel that way. Izuku waved her off and told her, it's okay. It's not your fault. Some people can't help the way they feel, and I'm self-aware enough to realize what would happen in the long run. He sighed as he sees Uraraka's expression shift, so he tells her, Okuko, you're kind and strong, determined, powerful, in control, and beautiful. And one day you're gonna meet someone who'll see and love every aspect of you. But that person isn't me. Uraraka looks off to the side for a while before looking back to ask, Can we at least stay as friends? Izuku smiles at this and replies, yeah, I'd like that a lot. With the tension lifted in the room, Uraraka takes on a more calm and playful demeanor as she jokingly poked the teen, so there isn't any other reason you and I can't be a thing. Such as, oh I don't know, another girl who's caught your eye. Was it obvious? Izuku asks back as his face flushed red, making Uraraka giggle. He runs his face and says nonchalantly, well, the secret is out. Before their conversation could continue from there, his office door came open, and in there stood Melissa and the other female employees, to which she said, Hey Izuku, me and the other girls are gonna go out for some lunch. Oh, hit. Uraraka. Oh okay, Melissa, see you later. Izuku murmured while trying to hide the goofy expression on his face. It takes Uraraka a minute to realize. Long enough for Melissa to leave and then Uraraka to ask, huh? Yeah, Izuku admits while looking at Lovestruck at the closed door. Have you asked her out yet? She asked excitedly. This instantly got the boy's attention, and he shot himself up while waving his hands exclaiming, no, and I don't think it's the right time. I just started being friends with her. I don't want to ruin it. It has to be the right time. The girl gives him an understanding look back with a sideways smile and approach the automatic door. Just before she leaves through it, she tells him, well, don't wait too long. I may not know much about Melissa, but I know a person like her doesn't come around every so often. I won't wait long and thanks. Izuku says back as he watches his new friend leave his office. CH92, a cure-all. Professor Egon. Professor Egon, Chopper exclaimed as he burst into the man's office after meeting with the dragon hunters. After scampering over to his desk, he half yelled breathlessly, You'll never believe what I just uncovered. An ancient disease, Egon exclaimed in horror. No, Chopper answered. A new kind of parasite, Egon continued to guess, still sounding horrified by the implications. No, Chopper answered again. The leading cause of certain ailments in people of different skin tones, Egon asked once more, feeling the terror and anticipation fade away. No, Chopper answered once more. Then I give up. What is it? Egon finally loses his fear as he slips into his chair in exasperation. I gave one of the recruits for the dragon hunters their medicine to start treatment. For his illness. Chopper began to explain. Okay, that's great. Egon complimented him, but didn't sound true about it or enthusiastic. Chopper shook his head and exclaimed. But you don't understand. He got better. Right away. Like instantly. Just drink and heal. Egon's interest peaked as he went from nearly no attention to full attention as he squeaked out with wide eyes. Oh wow. So I analyzed what was in the medicine I gave him, and it turns out some of Ares' blood got in the mixture. Why didn't you tell me she had such an amazing quirk? Chopper demanded while throwing down a small sheet of paper that had the analysis on the medicine content. Egon looked between the paper and the irate little animal before narrowing his eyes and growling in a dangerous voice. Chopper. I'm serious, Chopper yelled back. And so am I. Egon screamed while hitting the table, causing the small animal to jump but kept his hard glare at the man. Eventually, the two of them came to an impasse and Egon slumped into his chair while telling him, Chopper, this is the whole reason why I didn't tell you. How you're acting and what you're thinking. I know what you're going to ask and the answer is a big fat no. This shocked the reindeer and he griped. But why? Egon hucks a sigh as he asks him back. Do you remember what I told everyone? About Eri, why she has those scars and has a panic attack with any medical equipment. You said she was, oh. Chopper began to recall until the memory came back. And with this new information it all fell into place as he figured. I never understood why people would want to hurt a child for no reason, but the reason was her quirk, wasn't it? Egon nods before explaining. Rewind is a very powerful quirk and equally as dangerous. Any organic matter she comes into contact with reverts to a previous stage. If she touches a person, she could cure them of their illness, or turn someone into a monkey, a baby, or even erase them. That's why Overhaul had her used. To make these, he said while taking a small handful of bullets from his drawer, allowing Chopper to inspect them. After looking them over, he inquired confused. What are these? Bullets. Quirk erasing bullets. Egon corrected him, making the animal freeze up in shock. Look, Chopper, I know where you're going with this. You never knew the potency of her quirk, and seeing firsthand, you can only think of how it could help people. You found your fountain of youth, so to speak. Egon began until he was cut off. But think about all the good it could do. So many people could be cured of ailments that could take weeks of treatments, risky surgical procedures gone, and anything you could think of could be cured. Think of the people, Chopper practically begged him. Egon sat up and exclaimed, think of that girl. That same girl who went through far too much for someone of her age. She shouldn't be scared, but happy. She should have a normal childhood free of doubt and fear. She shouldn't have scars, but smiles that last the whole day. She should be a child. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes as he said, I mean, for God's sake, Chopper, the girl can't even look at eaten popsicle sticks without crying. And I love ice pops, Chopper. Sweat dropped at this as Egon pointed out. This isn't about people but Hirilku, isn't it? Upon beginning to read so well, Chopper hits his face to hide the tears coming out. Egon gave him an empathic look while patting his head as he sympathized. Chopper, I understand your desire to help, but your desires should always be tempered with morality. Maybe in the future Eri will want to help and give her blood to become a cure-all. But for now, she can't. So let her be happy and ready in her own time. Before Chopper could open his mouth to reply, a small voice called out, but I want to help. Both heads turned and exclaimed, Eri, as the young girl stood in the doorway. How much of that did you hear? Egon asked nervously as the young girl ran up to his knees. Grabbing them and looking up with pleading eyes, she begged, Please, Egon, I want to help. I was to give my blood to heal sick people. I'll be strong and brave. I won't cry at the needle, I promise. At this point, the girl was becoming hysterical, so Egon put her on his lap to calm her down as he told her, Eri, calm down. No one is forcing you to do this, or saying you should. Only if you're ready, and only you can truly know that. I am ready, she insisted, but her expression said otherwise. You don't sound so sure of yourself, Egon points out. I do, she rants, flailing her arms like a child. Ari. Take a breath, Izuku told her while rubbing her back. Once she was breathing normally, he said, listen, you don't need to think you're obligated to do this just because your quirk can do it. It's your quirk and your choice, not anyone else's. She jumps down from his lap where she's stopped by Chopper, who tells her, Eri, I know what I said before, but I was being rash. Egon is right, though your quirk has amazing potential to do great things, it's still your quirk by right. You shouldn't let my desperation for an easy way to make a cure-all cloud your judgment. The thought of medical equipment scares you, and I don't want to have to put you through that time and time again. She pouted in response and puffed up her cheeks while saying, but Dr. Chopped, I do want to do this. I've been wanting to say it for a long time but couldn't. I am scared. Scared. But I want to help others like you, and Izuku, and Egon have. She started to shake at the thought of his name, and Egon thought she was having another panic attack. But to his surprise, she began to calm herself down until she could speak normally again, and she continued, Overhaul wanted to use my power to hurt others, but I want to use it to help others. I can't be a hero. I don't think I'll ever want to be one, but I can help like this. She looks up to Egon with pleading eyes, and the man thinks about this for a while, before giving up and saying, if that's what you want, then I guess I can't talk you out of it. Eri hugs his legs, and when she pulls back, Egon goes on to inquire, but we still have to find a way to draw blood from you without causing another panic attack. We could use the drowsy poppy. So I can sleep, Eri offered. Egon gives a thoughtful nod before informing her, yes, but too many uses could be dangerous to your body. If you inhale it too many times or too much, you may never wake up again. Then we'll only have to use it once and take enough blood to make a splinter of it, Chopper offers. Good idea. Egon agrees with the snap of his fingers. He then picks up the girl. Again, holding onto her tightly, he whispers, Eri, you are so brave for doing this. And I'm so proud of you. I love you, Egon, she whispered back into his coat, making the man feel warm and giddy inside. That is until she asked, after this, can I ride the mantelope? Egon laughs, knowing he used to do the same thing as a kid, and answers her, sure you can. CH93, a day at the park. Egoun, Izuku complained aloud as he ran through and locked the office door of his mentor behind himself. Aye, Zuku? What's going on? Egon asked back, confused by his actions. They won't leave me alone, Izuku complained vaguely. Who won't? Egon prompted. Izuku groaned as he slid to the floor and told him, Dante and Bakan. It was nice. For a bit. Having an extra set of hands and someone willing to help. Heck, it was. Like having a set of clingy younger brothers. But now it's just a nuisance. I can't even poop in peace. Egon thought to himself for a bit before putting forth. Well, Bakan did say he would serve you for life, and you did give Dante the chance to try and get a life for himself. Kinda surprised it's not Melissa, seeing as she's the one who made the portal to hell. But why don't you just tell them to leave you alone? I've tried. They just keep coming back after like 15 minutes. Even Rapper leaves Cho alone for longer periods. He gripes while pulling on his face. Then give them something to do like Cho does for Rapper, Egon offers. I've tried. But when they finish or get bored, they come back, he complained. While sobbing into his hands and pulling them out, he exclaimed, I need a break. After hearing this, an idea pops into his mind and Egon offers. Then how about a vacation? A vacation? What's that gonna do? Izuku exclaimed back. Egon sighed, seeing he wasn't getting it, so he explained, You're stressed. So why not take some time off? If anyone needs it, it's you. Plus it'll give you a chance to escape your admirers for a little bit. Izuku opened his mouth to reply, then closed it as he thought for a bit. After thinking, he said with increasing carefulness, Okay, I like the sound of that, but where am I gonna go? Egon raised and wagged his finger as he corrected him. Where are we gonna go? And we are going to Triassic Park for the long weekend. You, me, and Eri. Eri, Izuku questions, not disappointed to have her alone, but more confused. She needs to get out of the building and see the world. Experience new things. Plus she needs a reward after giving her blood to make that new cure-all. Egon explains. Makes sense. Izuku agrees before rubbing his hands in excitement and stating, happily, Okay, this sounds like a plan. Let's go. Oh, Can we bring my mom? I thought you'd never ask, Egon says with a relieved smile. Bakan, let go, Izuku yelled as he finally kicked the sharp man from the leg he was clinging on to. Don't go, Bakan begged him as he managed to reattach himself to both his legs. This time, right now, the two Midoriyas, Eri and Egon, had all gotten themselves packed up for the long weekend at Triassic Park. They had all their things placed on a warp pad and were giving their temporary goodbyes to everyone. Everyone was taking it well that their bosses were leaving for a while, except for Bakan, who had latched himself to Izuku, causing the boy to fight with him to get loose. Luckily, Dante was there to pet the sharp man away from him with his demonic strength, and as he was holding him back, Dante assured him, saying, "Calm down. Bakan, he is not gonna sacrifice himself in a blaze of glory. He's just going on a vacation for the next 4 days. But I'm supposed to serve you every day of my life," Bakan argued while trying to wiggle free. "That doesn't mean follow me where I go. I just need some space," Izuku told him, looking and sounding exasperated. "This is because we've been clingy, hasn't it?" Dante asks as Izuku looks away in embarrassment, giving the fiend his answer. He sighs to himself and in a shameful, yet embarrassed tone he comments, "Sorry about that. You just seem to be the most personable person here and you did kinda save us." Izuku looked at him, then told him, "Melissa was the one who made the machine, and I'm not even as old as you. If you want someone personable, why not talk to Egon? He's old. I'm only 30, you little dash." Egon began to yell at him until Inko took his hand, calming him down. "Look, how about I give you both of these?" Izuku told them while pulling 2 objects from his pocket, handing one to each. Both men took the strange things, only to see that they were cute little frogs at the end of keychains. "What is this trinket?" Bakan asked while carefully holding the object up by the hook to observe it. "It'll light up when I need help. When it does, you can race to Triassic Park. Until then, don't come." "And I mean it," Izuku firmly told them. "Then I will remain vigilant for when you need me," Bakan begrudgingly accepts, only getting a nod from Dante in response. "Good to hear," Izuku says as he walks into the platform with the other 3 people waiting. Upon giving their last goodbyes, Inko brought something up just before they were beamed up. "Izuku, sweetie, I didn't know you had such unique friends," Inko comments with concern, lacing her tone. "Can we talk about this later?" Izuku gripes, feeling his embarrassment rise once again. When they finally warped over to the park, they were met in the main lobby by one of the employees waiting for them. When she welcomed them, a swarm of people came and took their bags off to their overnight rooms. This part of the lobby was the warp room where people from all over would use the warp pass to travel to the park. Though warp pass might be the quickest and easiest option, they weren't the only one. The island was outfitted with a full-sized airport and large-scale boating dock. These 2 options were the cheapest since the warp pad was so expensive to use. A little thing implemented by Izuku so other transportation services wouldn't go out of business. This also has the effect of making tickets much cheaper. Works wide. After the attendant gave them the blah-blah welcoming speech, she brought them out of the warp lobby and into the main one, which housed ticket counters, concierge check-ins, itinerary boards, tour guide meetups, a full holographic area for fun and information, a giant dinosaur skeleton in all 4 corners of the huge dome, and so much more. The whole place was so packed it was like looking at a sea of people. Luckily, their guide knew how to maneuver around the swarm, and they finally made it outside where the real park began. Concession stands, gift shops, balloons, restaurants, and theme park rides of all kinds were the first things to be seen. But the farther you look down, the more you can see the highly secured enclosures of several dinosaurs and other extinct animals. That's where the real excitement and cries of people were. One thing that stuck out the most was a person walking around with an Archaeopteryx on their shoulder and giving an educational show on it. Eri looked at the park with wonder and joy, so too did Inko with happier surprise. And Egon, who had taken a back seat during the construction of this place, looked on with an impressed look. Seeing their reactions, Izuku could help but feel swelled up with pride at their reactions. It was nice to know and see with his own eyes the fruits of his labor bring so much joy. And so their vacation began. They went on every ride and ate at several places and vendor stands. Eri got a balloon. Egon, and Inko got to share a few drinks at a bar while Izuku took Eri to the children's section. There they had a small-scale petting zoo and pony rides where the animals in question were baby or small dinosaurs. After this, they went to see every creature, available from the raptors to the Argentinian sauras. They even went into the field and rode the gyroscope spheres alongside the many grazers and got dinos. From there, they witnessed the glory of the mosasaur show where it leapt from the water to snap up a freshly killed shark. From here they finally got to Izuku's favorite part, the Tyrannosaurus pit, where the animal in question was being fed a nice fat calf. It was truly like being a kid again, and for the first time in a long time, Izuku smiled and laughed without care, bringing a smile and tears to the eyes of his mother and mentor. Once they got the first quarter of the park observed, they all got ice cream to finish off the day. As they walked and ate, Izuku commented to Egon, "You were right, Egon. I did need a vacation. Thanks." Egon smiles while ruffling his hair as he replies, "Of course. I'm glad you're having a fun time. I think I can speak for all when I say we all needed this little break." But before they could revel in this moment of bliss, red lights and a warning siren began to scream throughout the park. People began to panic a bit at the suddenness of this, and even the four of them huddled tightly in concern and confusion. "Hey, what's that?" one person in the crowd of many asked aloud. "The emergency alarm. Don't worry, maybe an herbivore just escaped its pen," Izuku tried to assure them. "Alert, alert. Code red. All guests are required to find shelter immediately. All guests are required to find shelter immediately. Paddock 37 has been breached," called an automatic message several times. "Paddock 37, but that's the aviary," Izuku exclaimed in shock as he gripped his ice cream cone a bit too hard. "What's to worry about some birds?" Inko asked him, wondering why he was so freaked out. Izuku shot his head to her and proclaimed, "Mom, they are not just birds. They are flying reptiles with razor-sharp beaks, with some growing to the size of giraffes, and can eat baby dinosaurs." Inko's eyes went wide as she heard this, but didn't get the chance to process it all as Egon yelled, "Here they come." Far outside the inner gate where the guest resided, a huge black cloud appeared to be hanging low and traveling fast, only for the cloud to show itself as an enormous amount of flying pterosaurs. This scene was shown over the jumbo boards as people began to scream and run for the nearest buildings. "We have to get inside," Izuku exclaimed as he tried to pull his family to safety, only to be stopped by Egon, who asked quickly, "Wait, don't you remember what you implanted in the animals?" Izuku looked at him with confusion and feverish intent until a light bulb went off in his head and he replied, "Oh right." Seeing this, Inko grabbed the two boys and yelled while dragging them off, "What are you two doing? We have to get inside now." "Wait, Mom. Just give it a second." Izuku stopped her as he stared at the live feed. As soon as the dinosaurs got close enough, they all began to fall out of the sky one by one till they had all landed on the ground in many twitching messes, causing mass cheering and relief around the park. "See, crisis averted," Izuku stated proudly. Inko was so stunned by this that she couldn't speak, so Eri asked the question she was thinking, "What just happened?" "The team and I were smart about keeping potentially escapable dinosaurs. So we added a chip to each of them. If they go outside their range, then it activates and shocks with enough juice to knock them out," Izuku explained while knocking on his head. Finally shaking herself from her stupor, she exclaimed happily and with pride, "Genius. I knew my son was smart." "Hey, you made sure to put a chip in all of them, right?" Egon suddenly asked out of the blue. "Yay. Triple-checked," Izuku replied, only to look in the man's direction and see a very large pterosaur flying closer and closer till it fell over the protection wall. This causes hysteria to endure as Izuku screams, "Holy shit. Quetzalcoatlus. Run." The people ran and screamed for their lives as the huge dinosaur flew overhead and landed on the ground to chase after the human prey. Unfortunately for it, the automatic emergency drone activated and began to shoot non-lethal neutralizing blasts of electricity at it. The creature screamed in pain as it stumbled and began to strike at the drone with its pointed beak. This gave the guests more than enough time to run for cover. Unfortunately, the Midoriyas were not able to get anywhere safe enough to do the pushing from the crowd and ended up having to hide away in a plushy stand. Once hidden, hopefully, Egon exclaimed, Why isn't the chip working? Izuku shook his head wondering as he exclaimed back with Eri in his lap, I don't know. But even if it wasn't, it shouldn't be acting like this or able to suppress the drones. Something is wrong with this animal. As they heard the sound of the drones slowly dying off as they continued to assault, the animal, the sharp beak of the dinosaur, slammed through the stand and somehow managed to hook onto Izuku's clothing, dragging him away. Izuku, Inko cried. Eri, Egon cried. As they were dragged out of the stand, the animal spread its wings with a screech and tried to stand the two of them with its beak. Luckily, Izuku was quick and managed to roll out of the way before jumping to his feet and trying to maneuver away from the animal, running toward its side so it couldn't spear him, while also giving the remaining drones a chance to continue their assault. But even with this, the creature would back and nearly into the teen as he would have to duck and cover from its legs and boy with shots fired around him. Then Izuku remembered his emergency signal and held the girl in one arm as he tried to dodge the animal's mass and fish wildly through his pocket. Once he finally got it out, he was bumped in the back by the animal, causing him to fall over and drop the device. So he picked himself up fast as he ran towards it, but was unable to grab it as his hand narrowly missed the animal's beak, which ended up destroying the device. Izuku quickly looked up to see the last drone destroyed at the end of its beak and looked ready to strike down with another spear attack. At that moment, the only thing Izuku could think to do was protect Eri with his body. So he turned, shut his eyes, and wanted for the final blow, only for it to never come. So he opened his eyes and saw two shadows covering him. He focused his eyes and saw it was his two followers holding off the attacking animal. Bakan was holding off the dinosaur with his blades between its beak, while Dante readied and threw a punch so hard at the animal that was forced back into a temporary stun. Dante, Bakan, Izuku exclaimed in joyful relief. We came as soon as we saw your distress, Bakan told him as he squared off with the animal. But the teen's excitement quickly faded as a thought crossed his mind and he asked, Wait, how'd you get here so fast? I can teleport, Dante told him nonchalantly, much to Izuku's surprise. But before Izuku could nerd out, Bakan barked out, What is this thing and how do we kill it? Shaking his head from his wonder, he informed them, It's called a Quetzalcoatlus, and it falls like anything else, but be careful, they are dangerous. I'm not scared of some ugly dragon, Bakan growled as he jumped after the animal, only for it to sap him away with its wings. From there it tried to strike its beak at the kids, only for Dante to release a torrent of flames on the creature, appearing to engulf it. Seeing the animal go up in flames, Dante turned around and smiled with a proud and smug look, only for the smoke to subside and show a charred dinosaur who struck the devilish man 3 times. One in the leg, one in the back, and one through the chest. Seeing this, Izuku cried out, Dante, only for the devilish man to raise his head from the ground and say with a smile and a weak thumbs up, It's okay. I've been hurt way worse than this. Only for the animal to strike him again, this time piercing the back of his head and going through his neck as he screamed, Son of a bitch. The dinosaur picked up the man between its beaks, looking ready to eat him, only for Bakan to jump onto its back and begin to slash and maul its back with his blades and teeth. The dinosaur let Bakan go and began to jump about as it attempted to shake him off, but with no luck, Bakan continued his assault. As the flying reptile struggled to get Bakan off, Izuku aided the injured Dante to his surprise, have already been healing his injuries, with all of them healed completely. Suddenly the dinosaur screamed and jumped into the air, trying to shake the man off in the air, but Bakan held tight and continued his assault, creating deep gashes and biting off huge chunks from the animal. As Izuku saw this unfold, he noticed where the animals were flying and yelled out, Bakan, cut its wings when I say so. Even though he couldn't see Bakan, he hoped he had heard him when the sharp man climbed towards one of the wings. When the dinosaur came over to the spot, he yelled, Now. Bakan extended out his blades and sliced the membrane, causing the animals to scream as it plummeted toward the ground and right into an enclosure. After the creature landed, Bakan rolled off its body completely exhausted. This is when he heard Izuku's voice come over a speaker as he called, Bakan, are you okay? Bakan got up from the ground and stood up while calling to Izuku's disembodied voice, I'm fine. Did I do it? Yes. Now run towards the blinking door and don't look back, Izuku commended him. Barkan looked around for a bit but finally caught sight of the yellow and red, blinking door. Listening to his instructions, Barkan ran as fast as he could towards the door, but not before catching something in his peripheral vision. The sight of a large scaly creature running and attacking the flying dinosaur with sharp teeth, hidden inside of a large mouth. He ran through the unlocked door and rolled out as it closed behind him. Upon getting up from the ground, he was met up with a relieved Izuku and Eri. Even though he would want nothing more than to receive his praise, Barkan was unnerved by the large creature in the enclosure, feeling a primal fear when just glancing at it. So he asked, "What was that dragon?" Izuku gave a sideways smile as he placed the wireless mic, connected to the enclosure that he used to communicate with him, back into his pocket before explaining, "It's called a dinosaur, not a dragon, and that is the king of dinosaurs, the Tyrannosaurus Rex." Izuku, Eri, Inko, and Egon's voices called out as the two adults ran and embraced their kids in tight screed hugs. "Are you two okay?" they both asked again at the same time, trying to wiggle free from their extremely tight embraces to talk and breathe. Izuku answered, "We're fine thanks to Barkan and Dante." Inko looked at the two monstrous men and with tears in her eyes she said, "Thank you both so much." Once things settled down between the family, Egon went into serious mode and told them, "Since that crisis was averted, I think we should find out what the heck happened. The chip didn't work and it shrugged off the shock shots from the drones, plus Dante's fire and getting shredded by Barkan. Something's wrong and we gotta find out. This wasn't just a coincidence." Izuku sighs sadly with a tear running down his face as he moans, "Goodbye. Vacation." CH94, A Day at the Park Part 2. So, what's the synopsis? We've been waiting here for hours. We kinda want to get back to our vacation. Egon impatiently gripped as he and Izuku stood behind a glass viewing room where they saw several park scientists work tirelessly, examining the corpse of the Quetzalcoatlus. One of the lead scientists, a woman covered in surgery attire, came from behind the examination room with a clipboard in hand and apologetically told them, "Sorry about the wait, sir, but we needed to cross all our T's and dot our I's so to speak. But we've managed to figure out everything from the Quetzalcoatlus remains." The two men leaned toward the woman as she read off her board. Its chip was removed, thus the reason for it not dropping like the others, and it was injected with some strange serum that caused it to go into a berserker-like rage. Thus why it took so much damage until it was killed and why it was so aggressive. "Hold on, the chip was removed." "Why?" Izuku exclaimed. Reading off her clipboard, she informs him, Quetzalcoatlus number 23 had gone under treatment for a small wing injury a week ago. But we found out that an unscheduled surgery had taken place in secret, in which the chip was removed. "Under whose order?" Izuku demanded, feeling extremely angry at this sneaky oversight. But Egon stopped the woman before she could continue as he said, "Hold on. Before we divulge into that, what was the animal injected with?" Looking over her notes again, she answered with an unsure answer, "We're not entirely sure of this, but the traces we were able to extract from its blood were similar to the drug Trigger." "Trigger? But that's impossible. Trigger only reacts to quirks and all the animals here are quirkless," Izuku told her, looking more confused than anything else. "Well, we found out it has been heavily modified into a sort of berserker serum. In addition, there were signs of tampering with the aviary, leading to the animals' mass escape," she explained further, allowing realization to dawn on the boy's face. "So someone removed the chip, allowing it to move outside of the parameters, injected it with a serum that made it go crazy, and finally unlocked the aviary to allow its escape," Egon summarized. "We believe it to be some sort of eco-terrorism," the woman scientist offered. Egon shook his head in hand, dismissing the theory, and saying, No, that can't be. We have this place under wraps tighter than Fort Knox. This was an inside job, and one used as a distraction. But for what?" Suddenly a security guard ran up to them in a breathless flurry and quickly told them, "Sirs, we may have found out the reason for this crisis." Both men were then brought into a new room where someone had been restrained in a high-tech metal chair in the darkness. When the light came on, both scientists were surprised to see a familiar young Chinese man sitting there with a displaced scowl on his face. "Dr. Wu," they both exclaimed in shock. Izuku shook his head, trying not to believe this, and argued. No, it couldn't be. He was recommended by Dr. Hammond. Why would he do this? It makes no sense. I think this is the reason. A security guard offered a wall setting a small object on a table nearby. A can of shaving cream. The two men observed aloud. Egon then picked up the item and shook it near his ear, where he observed. Sounds half empty, but it feels full. It has a false bottom, one of the guards explained. Upon unscrewing the bottom, it popped open to reveal a small carousel-like holder, where small objects sat inside of them. This is where the two men came to the same conclusion and exclaimed, embryos. Another guard then placed down a hard drive and, taking it into his hand, Izuku plugged it into a nearby computer to see its contents, only to be shocked as he saw severe terabytes of secret data copied into it. And research data, Izuku exclaimed before slowly turning his head to the restrained man as he asked, It was you, wasn't it? Only for Wu to not respond and narrow his eyes while looking away. A solid enough response for Izuku as he half shouted in a hurt tone, But why? You were made the head researcher with full access to everything and the ability to do just about anything. Here, you had sufficient funds and good pay with benefits. You had it all. Why would you throw it all away? Wu still said nothing as Izuku started to tear up, so Ijin took the reins, grabbed Wu up by his collar, and growled, Listen here, Wu, you nearly caused a potentially dangerous and catastrophic event. So you better give me a reason why I shouldn't throw you into the Mosasaur lagoon. Fine, I'll talk. Wu finally coincided. After being let go, the man explained, The Americans contacted me several weeks ago, telling me they wanted the process of creating dinosaurs. At first, I refused, but then they offered me what they were willing to pay, and it was more money than I'd seen in my whole life. So much so that I could start my very own research facility right from the get-go. So I agreed to their terms and sought to obtain materials and research in secret. At first, I secretly sent small bits of information to them, but after a bit, I decided to go all in to try to sell off as much as possible in one go. So I concocted this whole plan, and I nearly got away with it too. Still looking hurt by his betrayal, Izuku promoted. But why would you do this? You were one of Thomas's brightest students. He had nothing but good things to say about you. I gave you so much control because I thought you could be trusted. So why? Why? You know exactly why, Wu yelled at the boy, causing him to back away. Because of you and this damned pack, I went from an inspiring paleontologist to a glorified zookeeper. You ruined the paleontology community forever with your revived dinosaurs. There's no reason for us to speculate and study when we can just bring one back from the dead and see what it looked like and how it acted. There was nothing left. You took it all away from us, he ranted, as Izuku looked both confused and shameful. Don't you see what your advancement is gonna do? You're gonna put so many people out of work. I heard about your cure-all. Do you know how many doctors and nurses will lose their hard-earned jobs thanks to you? Wu finished his rant as he breathed heavily. Izuku looked more ashamed now from his words. They were true, but Izuku had planned for this inevitability in advance, but now he was starting to second-guess himself from how Wu took all of this to heart. But Egon had a different expression on his face, one that was as unreadable as he walked over to the now tense man as he released the restraints. As Wi stood up confused by the jester, Egon rested a hand on his shoulder while telling him, Wu, I'm sorry that you feel this way. He then tightened his grip and followed up in a threatening tone, However, I'm not apologizing for this. With one swift quick motion, Egon smacked Wu hard across the face, causing him to stumble back as Egon yelled, That was for lying to us. Another smack across the opposite cheek and yelled, That was for selling our secrets. Another smack across the first one and yelled, That was for betraying Hammond. Another smack and yelled, That was for putting others in danger. Another hard smack, causing the man's fair skin to turn bright red as he yelled, That was for ruining our vacation. Just as Wu was becoming woozy from the multiple hits across his face, Egon grabbed his collar and held him up while tightening his fist and growling, And this is for putting my family in harm's way. Then without a second thought, Egon shocks the man so hard in the face that not only does he fly back but also falls unconscious. Breathing hard after knocking out the man, Egan looked back to see the stunned, silent faces of his employees as he yelled, "Well, what are you all waiting for? Hey, Miracle, get going. Hand this trash over to the police, track down where our research went, and get the American government on the phone. I've got fish to deep fry." With that, the people began to scatter like huge as Egon stomped off to give a government a piece of his mind. CH95, archive it. What do you mean you don't have it? You have to have it. You've been getting regular terabytes of secret information from us for weeks. How can the largest and most powerful country in the whole world possibly lose information on recreating dinosaurs? It's not possible, Egon yelled over the phone to the president of the USA. That's because, like you, we were scammed from the inside. The president groaned as he rubbed his head through the phone. One of ours sold that same information to several buyers across the globe, he explained briefly. A vein burst in Egon's eyes hearing this, and he shouted, "What? So you are telling me that several countries and possible criminal organizations now have the needed information to recreate long-extinct animals? Are you out of your mind? What did you even want with dinosaurs in the first place? They are just big lizards." "Warfare," the president begrudgingly and vaguely answered. The pieces clicked and he yelled in an insulting tone, "Warfare? If you want a bioweapon, then just strap a minigun to a Komodo dragon and call it a day. It's not that simple. We needed your research to figure out the correct genome sequencing. Without it, we couldn't make creatures capable of going into battlefields or heeding human commands," the president told him in an almost pleading tone. Egon grinds his teeth as he tells him off. "Are you nuts? You can forget warfare. 'Cause these things are gonna be everywhere. The black market, illegal pet stores, online shops, farms, and even the wild. I'm still trying to get the dragon situation under control on my end, and now I have to worry about fucking dinosaurs screwing up the ecosystem." The president puts on a despondent time as he brushes it off while stating, "Oh, please, you're overreacting. Nature will live." Egon finally popped his top and screamed at the man, "Are you kidding? If so, much as one mosasaur gets out, it'll be the end of the whales. We've already got extreme and nearly extinct animals all over, and breeding programs aren't helping. And it's all because of motherfuckers like you." He slammed the phone down, hanging up the call as he hit his finger in frustration while grabbing his hair as he stresses, "Fuck. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" "Sir," Otto perks up to him. "What? Can't you see I'm in the middle of a breakdown?" Egon snaps at his employee. Surprisingly, Otto stays calm as he tells him, "Well, can you have it later? I need to go over some things that will probably only make it worse than the one you're having." Egon groans so loud it sounds more like a scream as he exclaims, "Oh, what could you possibly tell me to make this day worse than it already is?" Taking out his pad, Otto tells him, "Well, first off, the leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants recently broke out the members we recently incarcerated." At this, Egon falls to the ground and lightly slams his head into the metal floor of his office. "Second, do you know about the UA summer training program?" Otto inquired. With his head still on the ground, Egon answered, "Where they take the first year students up to the mountains to work on individual training with their quirks and rent out those unregistered pedos." "Of course I do." "Unregistered what?" Otto stopped and asked back in the middle of his news story. Egon shifts his head sideways and rolling his eyes he grips, "Oh, don't act so surprised. They call themselves a search and rescue team, but they dress like magical cat girls. I mean, who dresses like that for the mountains of all things? Plus one is a tranny, the other is a surprisingly functional low autistic, and the third one is into younger men. Much younger men." He emphasized the last sentence. "I noticed how you left one out," Otto pointed out, knowing there were 4 members of the Wild Pussycats. Placing his head back on the cool metal, Egon muttered, "Well, she's the most normal one, but she still dresses like she shouldn't be within 4 kilometers of an elementary school." He sighed loudly before prompting, "Anyway, back to what you were saying." Otto gave him a confused look before realizing it and stating, "Oh right. Well, they got attacked and one of the students got kidnapped." This time Egon brought his head up and got into a sitting position as he said, "Oh, shit. So they reached out to us for help, and so we sent 2 of the Valkyries to aid in the retrieval." It was a huge success as we not only retrieved the student but also captured their teleporter. Otto informed him with a bit of glee in his tone. However, his tone shifted again as he followed up saying, "Unfortunately, all might and all for one came to blows and ended up injuring the hero so badly he is now in retirement." "And all for one?" Egon prompted him, getting more and more unnerved. "Gone." Even though it looked like he had been finished off, Otto told him with a confused tone, scratching at his head. Egon puts on a thoughtful expression while saying, "That's certainly trouble." "What? About the student who was kidnapped? Who are they?" "Bakugo Katsuki," Otto begrudgingly tells him. "Now I feel conflicted about that." Egon mumbled to himself before asking further. "Anything else?" Looking through his notes he says, "We have the teleporter, Kurogiri, ready for quirk extraction. And we've managed to reclaim many of our lost assets from the time that Mystique managed to steal them from us." Egon sighs as he leans back and guesses. "Let me guess, we've also claimed a bunch of fucked up shit that was created from it." "Let me show you," Otto offered while waving him along. From there the octopus took the man into another chamber where several items were hauled away and neatly lined up in heavily fortified glass boxes on floating dolly carts. Although much of the original research notes and splinters were retrieved, many are still floating around. Still, we were able to confiscate all these things made by them, Otto explained as he came to the first case. Inside was a clear tube with metal mechanical openers that had a suspended black ball of goo that seemed to move on its own. This is where Otto told him, first up, is an organic parasitic amorphous lifeform that takes the form of black sludge, known simply as the symbiote. When bonded to the right kind of host it grants the many benefits including rapid healing, superhuman strength, speed, endurance, durability, and reaction time. Although this boost to everything, including superficial immortality, comes with many downsides including photophobia, insanity, berserk rage, extreme hunger that leads to cannibalism, and death. This is mostly due to the symbiote needing to bind with a perfect host and a constant source of nutrition as the creature will begin to consume the host's internal organs until they are nothing but a sack of skin. In addition, the symbiote can't survive in any conditions except the vacuum of outer space. "So what does it need to eat to survive and not eat its host?" Egon inquired. "Phenethylamine," Otto answered. Thinking about this he recalled aloud. "Wait, that's the same chemical compound. That's found in both chocolate and this thing eats brains and spleens," Otto told him casually as Egon made a horrified expression. "Don't let that freak you out yet. This thing also has amazing adaptability and genetic copying," the octopus followed up. "In other words?" Egon inquired in dread, trying to keep his cool. Otto then put on a thinking expression before he elaborated. "Let's just say, for example, the symbiote attached to someone with a spider quirk. Then the symbiote would have the strength, speed, senses, and wall crawling of a spider. Not to mention shooting webs. For all we know, the limits that this thing could obtain could be limitless and universal or multidimension in scale. Please tell me it has a weakness." Egon began to break out into a cold sweat while looking at the floating blob. Otto nods in reply before telling him, although hard to do, it can die. But it can't survive in an atmosphere. It's weak to both extreme temperatures and high sonic frequencies, and is capable of starvation. Becoming a bit more lax, he sighs and says, "Well, that's good to hear. Put it away. And make sure it's tight." Otto nods as he notes this down, then goes to another case holding a single glass vial with a green liquid inside. Motioning to it, the octopus says, "This is Project Titan. One swing of this formula will turn you into a nearly unstoppable behemoth, on par with current All Might. Though it'll transform the drinker into a hideous beast, the effects can be reversed with time and regular treatment." Otto brings him to another containment unit with a large pill bottle filled to the brim within. The pills are colored red and black, divided into individual squares all along its body. Showing them off, Otto explained, "Next we have the energy steroids. These small pills can cause anyone to reach and break their maximum potential in combat, much like Project Titan, but the person remains in full control. Unfortunately, the effects aren't permanent, and the major side effect is the consumer rapidly aging." The next case held a strange blue glowing circle device covered in metal, made up of several smaller circles, where Otto told him, "This here is the Ouch reactor. In simpler terms, it's a new kind of element with the power of the sun. We confiscated it from some lousy, loudmouthed, rich prick in New York City." The next case held a strange clear liquid with a green tint to it where the octopus said, "This chemical compound is called fear toxin. It can be inhaled or injected to cause visual and auditory hallucinations of, well, fear. Injection is the most direct and potent way of doing it. The dosage and materials used can change its toxicity, making it last longer or kill the person." The following one was another liquid colored a strange red color that appeared to pulsate alongside a manuscript where the octopus told him, "This chemical and book detail the proper use and creation of a form of immortality classified as vampirism. Once the person is turned, so long as they consume the blood of intellectual creatures, they can live forever." The next display case was a weapon mount with 3 distinct weapons: a hammer, a spear, and a sword. The hammer was the only one not on the display, and instead held up by a mechanical arm. Otto then told Egon, "These 3 weapons are called Mjolnir, Gungnir, and Ingrid. These 3 weapons are seemingly magical by virtue of what they do. Mjolnir is a nearly invincible hammer that can be thrown, return to the thrower, grant flight, and the ability to command the weather. The only downside is that it must be wielded by someone worthy, whatever that means. The hammer itself wasn't anything too special, it just looked like a well-polished, carved, and ingrained stone on a wooden stick that seemed to be 3 centimeters shorter than it should be. That sounds like a load of honky." Egon blew him off while rolling his eyes. He then walked over to the hammer as the machine placed it on the ground. After trying and failing to budge the weapon, he finally gave up and stated, "Okay, that thing is heavy." Otto gave him a knowing and smug look with his eyes, only for Egon to shoot back. "But if what you're saying is true, how can a machine grab it and it easily lay on a surface? Shouldn't it break through?" "That effect only takes place when a sentient creature grabs it," Otto explained, making Egon's sweat drop at such a ridiculous and unrealistic rule. Going to the next weapon, Otto explained, "Gungnir is much the same apart from the worthy bit and the control of lightning. Instead, it'll never miss a target it's thrown at. The spear, like the hammer, wasn't anything so unique as its only defining feature was that it had a golden tip with several engravings. Ingrid, on the other hand, has many similar effects as the first 2, but is sentient," Otto told the man as he pointed to the sword. Egon raised a skeptical eyebrow and brushed off, "A living sword? Are you joking? See for yourself," Otto offered with a knowing gaze. Egon cautiously reached out to touch the sheathed object only for it to fly out and float around his head while emitting strange whistling noises as if it were talking. The sword was a bit more unique than the other 2, not only for its status as a living being but also because the whole thing was a shining copper gold with a featured blade at the tip. Egon put a hand to his mouth as he watched the object fly around him, and muttered, "Son of a bitch." The sword continued to fly and whistle around him like an excited dog as Egon noted, "Well, aren't you friendly?" The sword whistled some more as if to agree, but then it stopped its merriment as Egon told it, "Sorry to say, but we gotta put you away till we figure out what to do with you." The sword flew up and away while making warning noises as its glow grew even brighter. So Egon tried to de-escalate the situation as he told the weapon, "Don't worry, we're not gonna disassemble you. Just put you into storage for a short while." The sword didn't seem to be pleased about this, but compiles regardless as it was the least bad thing to happen. So it goes back into the sheath as Otto takes him to the next thing, which is 2 giant and extremely well-made suits. These next 2 are specially made suits that were made using the schematics of the VULTR and GOBLN suits. This first is called the RINO, and it grants anyone who wears it superhuman strength, durability, and endurance. The only caveat is that once somebody wears it, they can never take it off, Otto explained, as he motioned to the first suit that looked like a metal suit or armor in the shape of a rhino. Egon gives a despondent look as he questions, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If they can never take it off, how can their skin breathe, and how do they go to the bathroom?" Otto shrugged as he said back, "I'm not sure. We just got it and skimmed over the description." The other one is called SCORPN, which grants the wearer much the same as the first, but with more superhuman speed, reflexes, and agility alongside. The ability to produce different strains of super-concentrated venom and other poisons. As he stated, the suit looked like high-tech armor in the shape of a green scorpion. Which Ijin rolled his eyes as he asked, again, whose idea was it to make a suit you couldn't take off? Otto shrugs, then goes over to a case holding 3 radically different tubes of some kind of strange liquid, to which the octopus explains. These next 2 are called Project Hydroman, Sandman, and Molten Man, a process that either gives or extremely evolves certain quirks that have a connection to either fire, earth, or water, thus turning the person into a living elemental. Going to the next case, held a strange bumpy stick and a black stone in the shape of a pyramid with a symbol on the inside that looked like a circle with a few lines drawn through it. Otto told him, these 2 items are the closest things we have to true magic in the modern age. The first is called the Elder Wand, and the other is the Resurrection Stone. The wand comes with a spell book that we have yet to decipher, but the only 3 spells we were able to get out of it were Imperio, Crucio, and Avada Kedavra. Egon once again raised a skeptical eyebrow as he mused. Magic? Oh, come on. Otto, don't make me roll my eyes. This is the science we're talking about. Magic doesn't exist. Like I said, close enough. Otto gripes at him, getting a bit tired of his disbelief. So what's this resurrection stone do? Bring back the dead, though I highly doubt that. Egon jokingly asked as he opened the case to examine the stone. In a manner of speaking, yes. It allows you to communicate with the dead. Otto answers. Now that's bogus. Egon scoffs as he picks up the unremarkable stone, only to suddenly feel as if his whole body had shifted and then stopped shaking. Off the chill running through him, he looked up from the stone only to find himself in a dark misty somewhere. He looks around before saying, Otto, hearing and seeing nothing around him. Not even a floor, he calls out a bit. Otto, where'd you go? Better yet, where'd I just go? He tried to walk in one direction, but no matter what, it didn't seem like he made, and distanced himself from his original spot, so he yelled out, Hello? Hello. This time something does happen and he sees the most swirl around him. Then it is separated into 2 parts where they begin to take shape, one male and one female. As Egon narrows his eyes at the mist figures, he sees their features become more clear and his eyes go wide as he asks, Wait, is that Mom? Dad? Just as he's about to reach out and touch the hand of one of the figures, some kind of strong and strange wind pushes him away from the mist until he's tumbling back, and yelling as he desperately tries to cling to the non-existent floor. No, wait. Come back. Suddenly everything goes bright, and he feels himself being shaken by Otto, who's standing over him and yelling, Egon, snap out of it. Once Hoon is back in the real world, he gasps for air as he exclaims in a yell, I saw them. My parents. Why'd you take me away? Otto slaps his face and yanks the resurrection stone from his hand with a pair of tongs as he exclaims, This thing is dangerous and quite unstable. Even being around it is harmful. It needs to be kept away. Otto places the stone back into the case and Egon continues to stare at it, only for the octopus to grab him and drag the man away. Once away from the relic, Otto shows off a strange book that appears to be bound in human skin with a dreadful skeletal face screaming on the cover. Pointing to it, he tells him, Now this is the grimoire, a book of dark secrets. Unfortunately or fortunately we can't get it to open no matter what we do. Coming back to his senses, Ijin tells him, Well, don't and find a way to destroy it, if at all possible, which Otto notes down. Going to the next case, which held 6 strangely colored stones, Otto says, This is one of a few unfinished projects. This one is dubbed the Infinity Stones. But it's hard to put infinity into something, so they are currently just colored rocks. Going to the second to last container, holding a rectangular box with gold and black coloring with strange symbols and lines going around it, Otto said, This is the unfinished project known as the Mother Box. It has many capabilities including levitation-based flight, force field generation, energy projections, mirror illusions, and healing. But its main capability is portal creation known as the Boom Tube. With it, you can travel to any place at any time so long as you know the location. Egon ponders this one for a while before telling the octopus, Start researching this. 1. It could come quite in handy when we don't have a warp pad nearby. After noting this down, Otto shows off the last container, which holds a strange green wooden mask as he tells him. This item is called the mask, and apparently, when worn it grants the person, cartoon logic and abilities, but only under the influence of the moon. After showing off the last object, Otto brought Egon into a hallway where several doors sat with something inside of them, labeled by the green lights above them. Egon thought that was it, but perhaps that was just the ones he could be safely shown. Perhaps each door held something that needed its room. However, he quickly got his answer as Otto explained. These last four are animals. The first one doesn't have a name, but we've decided to call it the moon dog. Otto opened the first door where it revealed 6 sparkling white dogs, which Egon remarked, "Oh, a bit weird looking. Almost like the wish dragon from the never-ending story." Anything else to add? The moon dogs were about the size of an Irish wolfhound and just as shaggy. Their heads were equal in width to their muzzles, with large floppy ears like a basset hound, except their eyes were very human-like and carried a sense of intelligence behind them, giving off an uncomfortable, uncanny valley feeling to them. And as Egon stated, their whole appearance from their faces to their bodies' age tails made them look remarkably similar to the wish dragon from the never-ending story. They are intelligent, have multifaceted quirks, and possess human hands, Otto told him casually. Say what? He glanced back as he looked at their front paws, only to realize that they indeed had human hands. Egon blinked a few times to absorb this as he stated, "Okay, now it's totally weird. They can understand you." Otto side-mouthed to him in a hushed tone. Egon looked up from one of the dog's hands and saw nearly all of them staring directly at him with intensive stares. Seeing no way out of this situation, he approached one of the dogs and kneeling to it he started. "So, geez, how do I talk to a dog? Just like you would your cat," Otto called out to him. Egon shot the octopus a look over his shoulder and griped. "That's different. It's a normal animal, and these guys understand my words, not just the emotions behind them." He looked back at the dog, who continued to stare at him, patiently waiting, until Egon blabbered out, "So do you guys want to work with us?" Otto slapped his huge head only to be surprised as the moon dogs barked back in confrontation. After being acquainted with their new work friends, Otto takes him to the next room where he shows him to a small table where a small terrarium sits. Inside was a small and strangely colored spider that was larger for something of its species since it looked nothing like a tarantula. The second is this radioactive spider. Otto showed off the arachnid. Putting his face to the glass, Egon inquired, "Does it give off a strong radioactive signal?" Otto shakes his head and informs him, "No, and truth be told, we're not sure what it does." Egon sighs before telling him, "We'll figure it out, tell me, and I'll decide whether to kill it or not." Otto nods as he notes this down before taking him to the next room. Just before opening it, Otto informed him, "The third one isn't an animal but a human." Egon gives a questioning look before the door opens to reveal a large and heavily reinforced tank with an enormous crocodile man inside of it, leasing Egon to yell, "Holy crap, what is that thing?" Waylon Jones, the tag refers to him as Killer Croc, 36 years old and hailing from Louisiana, America, currently in possession of a crocodilian quirk. Otto introduced him to the man-creature. Egon gives him another questioning look as he asks, "In possession? As in, he wasn't always like this?" Otto confirmed with a nod before affirming with words, "He was a quirkless man, with a severe skin condition, and now he's a monster." "Let me out," Jones growled as he poked his head up from the water. "Sorry, Jones, but we can't do that," Egon told the gator man. Slamming his huge fists against the glass, he screams, "You can't keep me locked up forever. I'll get out, and I'll eat you all. We're not imprisoning you, just keeping you here until we undo what was done to you." Egon tried to calm him down, only to get a growl from the man as he sank back down into the water. After leaving that room, Otto brought Egon to the final room where just before opening it he explained, "The last ones don't have names, but we picked them up from a rich man's backyard laboratory in India. He accidentally turned his prize herd of elephants into sentient creatures. They don't even resemble the animals they were before." The octopus opened the door, and the moment Egon stepped foot into the room that was twice the size of the others, he saw something so shocking it made his eyes nearly pop out of his skull. Crowded around the large space were, as Otto said, Over 3 dozen elephants that weren't elephants. They were far smaller than their previous Asian form, but still larger than a horse. They were covered in an even cost of light brown hair, but still retained their hooves and small ears. Their bodies were not as hunched as before and looked far more sturdier. The most noticeable features were their much more intelligent eyes all had different colors between individuals, and the end of their trunks had developed 5 finger-like attachments, giving them the appearance of a hand on their trunks, and they all seemed to be conversing in their language. Holy crap, Egon shouted loud enough for all the elephants to turn to him. Now, feeling very awkward at the unrequited attention, Egon blushes as he whispers, "So, do they have names?" "Not yet. I think they're deciding it amongst themselves," Otto answers back in a whisper. Seeing no other way around this, Egon approaches the animals as what seems to be the leader approaches him. From there he cleared his throat and exclaimed loudly, "Hello. I am friend. I am good. I am here to help. Do you speak at all?" "We do speak, and your native language to boot," the elephant answered back in a clear voice. Blushing a deep red at the answer and realization, Egon mumbled to him, "Well, now I just feel like an asshole. You must be the charismatic Professor Egon. A pleasure. My name is Parvati." The female elephant reached out her trunk, which Egon took and shook after, contemplating whether to touch it or not. "Given or chosen?" Egon asks me, trying to break the ice. "A bit of both. Now I hope you don't intend on keeping us captive in this place. We're maybe pacifists, but that doesn't mean we won't defend ourselves," Parvati tells him in a slightly menacing tone as the other elephants behind her also look ready to engage. Egon steeled his nerves and told her, "I'd love to say yes, but we have nowhere to put all of you, and I can tell you right now, the world isn't going to be so accepting of talking hyper-evolved elephants." An idea wasn't too far behind the problem, and from behind, Otto offered, "Why not bring them to Pacifica?" Egon snapped his neck behind himself and exclaimed in a shocked tone, "Otto, that's a terrible idea. That would be like sending lambs to the slaughter. You know how dangerous it is there. I'm not sending them off to their deaths." "Then let's make a smaller island off the coast, maybe a small archipelago," Otto counteroffers. Egon opens his mouth to argue, but bits stop as he thinks it over. After a bit, he admits, "That's not completely impossible. If we break off a small piece, we could use some modified island blooms to make them larger in addition to the already present archipelagos. Of course, we'll have to extend the range of the storm and sea machines to accommodate this." When he comes out of his thought process, he notices that Otto and the elephants are all staring at him intently, waiting for an answer, to which he finally conceded and said, "Oh, all right, you've convinced me. But you guys will just have to wait it out till then, since this could take weeks and we are stretched thin as is. But we'll try to make your living arrangements as best we can." Parvati nods and replies, "That's more than doable. But if I may bother you," this gets Egon's attention as he's about to leave, where she asks him, "Could you provide us with textiles?" "You want clothing?" he finally asks back after a long and awkward staring from the man, to which the animal nods. Trying his best not to look down, Egon inquires while covering his eyes, "Do you have a sense of shame and nudity?" "Don't you?" Parvati shoots back. Egon made a sound in his throat and stated like the answer was obvious. "Well, yes. But that's because my body is wimpy and weak, and I have something to cover. You guys are different." "Are we now?" Parvati prompted him, making the man more uncomfortable as the other elephants behind her chuckled at seeing his reaction. Finally bursting out from his embarrassment, he exclaimed, "Oh, come on. 2 of my employees are hyper-intelligent animals, and they are naked 24/7. So you can't blame me for being surprised by this." He sighed after trying to shake off his embarrassment as he tells her, "But yes, we can provide you with clothing." Just before fully leaving the room, Egon prompted her, "By the way, do you and your tribe have a name, or do you need one?" Parvati turns to her herd where they speak in their language, and when she turns back to him, she answers, "We've come to a census referring to ourselves as the Pachyseratherium." Even for a scientist like him, that was a mouthful to say or pronounce daily, so he kindly inquired of the animal, "Can I call you guys pachyderms?" CH-96, Research Log, Heaven and Hell, Top Secret. This is Dr. Izuku Midoriya coming to report and shed light on a discovery that was made quite recently within our facility. This topic is top secret and will be kept under lock and key, only to be known and accessed by few people. With the permission of Professor Egon, I have been given sole authority to look into this topic and many questions regarding it. To briefly summarize what this is about, a few weeks ago, a few colleagues of ours, who shall remain nameless, managed to create a device that can break the barrier of space-time, allowing for interdimensional portals to be opened. The first and only successful connection just so happened to open a direct gateway to hell itself. And I don't mean that symbolically, metaphorically, poetically, or any other kind of way. I literally mean actual hell itself. One of its more friendly denizens managed to escape, and he sits here with me now. I shall now turn over to our newest resident, Dante. Dante, you can stop playing with the mic, you'll break it. What? Hey, oh, sorry. This is the first time I've seen something like this. It's so fascinating. That's great to hear, but let's stay focused. I have many questions, and I have another question after you. Right, sorry. Hi, my name is Dante and I dash. You don't have to speak so loud or so close to the mic, Dante. Just back up, relax, and talk usually. It'll pick up your voice. I'm Dante, and I currently live and work for NIP and I'm a Cambion. What exactly is a Cambion, and how are they made? Well, when a human, usually a female, wants power, wealth, or something else, she'll invoke the powers of hell to summon a demon to make a deal. Then, they'll copulate, and 9 months later, a Cambion is born, sometimes. What do you mean by sometimes? Well, it's all a matter of chance. Sometimes, the human will die from the copulation. Sometimes, the baby will die before it's born. Sometimes, it'll be born with mental or physical defects, which is the whole reason humans have those. Only 10% of the time, a Cambion is born and then exchanged for whatever the person wants. Then, they are taken to hell and raised until they are old enough to work, where they do so until their demise. We work in many different fields across hell, and because of the work and the fact it's hell, the mortality rate is very high. Moving on. Do all Cambion have supernatural powers inherited from their demonic parentage? It depends on what kind of demon you're related to, but yes, we are all born with supernatural abilities. Shared abilities include supernatural strength, speed, endurance, stamina, reaction time, and healing. Then, of course, there is flight, minor shapeshifting, and natural defenses like fangs, horns, claws, hooves, wing spurs, and sharp tails. I personally can control and breathe fire. Do you know how many are left? Last I heard, it was only a few dozen, but that's sugarcoating it. After humans no longer believed in hell and couldn't correctly open gateways, my kind has been on the steady decline for a while. It got to the point that all Cambion had to stay with their infernal parent and work directly under them. So when that other demon tried to come through, that was your dad. In a sense, yes. I remember you telling me about how your dad was a first-generation demon. What exactly does that mean? Well, that's quite a can of worms to open. But you know how a third of the angelic army was evicted from heaven and became demons. Like most spurned people, they wanted revenge but couldn't due to their numbers. Sure, demons were much more unrestrained from their metaphorical leash to God, but they didn't have full use of their once mighty power. So the only thing left to do was increase their numbers. And that's how humans and demons started to cavort with one another. At first, but like I said, the chance of that success was slim. So, they instead started to breed amongst one another. Hold on. You said that angels and demons alike were spiritual beings, meaning they have no physical form. Therefore, there is no way to reproduce. So, how did they do the deed? While that's true, many, if not all, demons can shapeshift. So, they took forms that were more equivalent to something with a physical body and then made babies. At first, they had great success, but then things started to slow down after a few generations of this. In what way? Well, when a spiritual being reproduces, it takes on a more physical form and, by extension, the same traits. So, each generation after that becomes more and more of a physical being rather than a spiritual being until it's little more than a hyperpowerful mortal creature. They eventually stopped counting the generations after the 10th. They also become so much weaker with each generation that some of the weakest can be bested with mortal weapons. And what generation are you again? I am a second generation, so I'm at the highest I can be. But I'm still lower than the 10th generation demons due to my half-human origins. Okay, next question. What do you know of hell specifically? Does Satan truly rule over it? Yes, to an extent. There are 9 rings of hell, each stacked on top of the last. And each one is more horrible than the last: limbo, pride, lust, gluttony, greed, wrath, envy, sloth, and treachery. Each one is ruled over by a prince, with the exception of limbo, pride, and treachery. The first has no ruler, and the other 2 are ruled by Lucifer himself. Lucifer rules 2 rings of hell. Yes. He's a prince. Yes. And its king. Yes. This is a lot to take in at once, but how does he rule 2 rings? Well, Lucifer's true form remains imprisoned in treachery, while his aspect rules pride, standing above all else, so to speak. Can you tell me who or what rules over the other rings of hell? Well, Lucifer or Satan, whichever you want to call him, rules over pride and treachery. Asmodeus rules lust. Gluttony has Beelzebub. Mammon has greed. Baphomet rules wrath. Envy has Leviathan. And finally, sloth is ruled, or looked over by Balfgor. Next question. Many human works throughout history have included stipulations regarding heaven, hell, and the first man. There were many stipulations regarding the first woman. Oh, I know what this is about. You think Lilith was the first woman but rejected Adam and yada yada, right? Yes. Lilith was just another demon who tricked some humans into thinking she was the first woman. After that, she garnered the attention and affection of Lucifer, becoming his bride and then proceeding to have thousands of demonic children. Wow, so Eve really was the first woman. First and original. If you can, could you describe the rings of hell? Limbo is the least worst part of hell. It's a never-ending network of caves, where souls wander around eternally and seek out God. It's usually reserved for those who lived good lives but lacked any relationship with God. So, pagans and atheists get out there. But sometimes, they can try to build a relationship, allowing them to go to purgatory. Purgatory, the place between heaven and earth. It's where people who believe in God but have sinned in life have yet to be forgiven. Then there's pride, one of the depictions of hell I'm sure you're familiar with. But in truth, it's more like a torturous waiting room. Waiting room. Yes, the souls of those deserving hell are meant to sit and wait their turn to be judged by Lucifer himself and thrown into whatever ring they most deserve. Lust is a never-ending whirlwind that souls are whisked around in an uncomfortable orgasm that never ends. In glutton, souls are eaten by demons, only to reform from whatever is left. Greed is where souls are melted in pots of gold, and any who claw out are pushed back in. Wrath is the more iconic description of hell, brimstone fire, eternal torment, and all that. That's where I'm from. Interesting. Envy is an endless sea of drowning and being swallowed by giant fish demons. Sloth is a place where souls are forced to run away from demons as they chase them through an endless flat plain, though the demons are slow and lazy. That doesn't sound too bad. Have you ever had one of those dreams where no matter how fast you run, you never get anywhere? Well, that's what those souls experience alongside eternal exhaustion. Then there's treachery, a frozen wasteland where souls eternally shiver and freeze solid. Wow. But like I said before, hell changes to best torture a soul. What about animals, children, and babies? They are all pure, so they go straight up the stairs. Speaking of such, what do you know about heaven? Very little. I've heard stories from other demons in hell back when they were angels. Demons were angels. Of course, God would never create something evil. When Lucifer and his army rebelled against heaven, they were cast out from the Holy Land and became the demons of today. I remember you mentioning something about Nephilim the last time we spoke. Can you tell me more about them? They are kind like me, except they are half angel instead of half demon. So, humans and angels. Yes, for a time until it was outlawed precisely because of them. I don't quite understand. Okay, well, unlike a human-demon relationship, a human-angel relationship will always produce a Nephilim 100% of the time. And that's where the problems arise. Explain. Angels are far stronger than demons, that's just a fact. And humans are given total freedom to pursue or do whatever they want and are forgiven for their transgressions instead of being punished on the spot. So, provide near unlimited power to a being with the sinful and wicked mindset of a human, with total freedom, and what do you get? Shit. Shit is right. When the Nephilim started popping up, they caused more irreparable damage than any demon or even Lucifer did. Being on Earth, they had full range to do what they wanted with very few consequences and all the power to make it so, which is actually where all other religions come into play. What do you mean? Any human who didn't know about Nephilim, all of them, saw them as gods. Greek, Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Aztec, Native American, Chinese, Japanese. You name it. All their gods were just zealous Nephilim taking up the names given to them by the local populace, doing what they want, getting what they want, and generally just making a mess. It's also where the many stories of demigods and modern interpretations of angels and cherubs come from since the Nephilim committed every atrocity under the sun, including hedonism. That's why so many gods throughout so many religions are seen as assholes. So the many series of the gods are just romanticized garbage forced by the Nephilim themselves. Yep, it got so bad that the Big G man himself gave instructions to his angels to go and slaughter them. That kicked off the 1,000-year Half-Blood War. So the angels killed the Nephilim. Even the parents. No, they were imprisoned within heaven for causing that mess. But while the Nephilim were nearly as powerful as the angels, they didn't have the years of battle prowess and numbers of the angels of heaven. It took a while, a long while, but the last of the Nephilim was slain. Their influence on humanity was already rooted deep. But many of those old religions died out one way or another. Now, it's seen as more of a novelty in today's time. That's a lot to take in. And you're sure none of them left? Not a single one. Nephilim had many angelic powers but couldn't do everything angels could, such as interdimensional travel. And the Nephilim, they had souls, right? Yep, and not surprisingly, they all came to hell, where each and every one of them resided in treachery. Wow, I was not as prepared for this as I thought. I don't think anyone is. Say, you think I'll get into heaven? Right. I can't say. That's God's decision. But you have potential. I guess, I hope. Well, that'll end our day of questioning. Thanks for agreeing to do this again. Dante. This is Dr. Izuku Midoriya signing off for now and saying, I think I should change my religion. CH97, Research Log, The Realms, Top Secret. This is Dr. Izuku Midoriya coming in again with a new research log on a newly discovered objective intrigue at the Neo Icon Phoenix Research Facility. Once again, with Professor Egon's I was allowed to look into this topic. After doing so, we both quickly realized that something like this had to be kept at the utmost forefront of secrecy. So, only a select few individuals will know about this topic. I'll explain how we came to this discovery to give a brief oversight of this. Back when several of our most delicate and vital materials were stolen from us a few months ago, some of them fell into the hands of an individual responsible for creating the Nomu monsters. But instead of another Nomu, an entirely new life form was created. However, the only way for this new life form to propagate is for it to inject a host with an embryo parasitically. That same host happens to be our person of interest. After a very close call, we managed to save the host from certain death and get some vague information from him. From what little we got from him, it turns out he's not even from Earth or, as he calls it, Earth Realm. Now I sit here with him. Now, thanks for coming, Barkhan. Stop trying to eat the mic. I want to see how this small creature picks up my voice. It's not a creature, it's a machine or a tool, like a spear. Just stop putting it in your mouth, it's not tasty. I'll take your word for it, my master. Don't call me master. I know we talked about this briefly, but you were recovering, and the alien came up, and well, now we have a chance to clear the air on things. Ask whatever you want, and I'll explain it to the best of my knowledge. Okay, so tell me about this place you're from. Outworld, if I'm correct. To explain Outworld, I must explain its history. That works perfectly. Go on. Initially, Outworld was a desert wasteland of sand, stone, and deep gulches. Inhabited by 3 different races, the Shokan, the Centaurian, and the Outworlders. Can you explain these other races? The Shokan are Outworlders who bred with dragons and created creatures. With 4 arms, massive strength, and fire breath. The Centaurians are Outworlders who bred with great beasts and now possess 4 legs to ride. Across the open plains. These 2 races are constantly at odds with each other. Then there are the Outworlders themselves, who look very similar to Earth. Realmers but are stronger, faster, more reliant, and live longer lives. Fascinating. At this time, Outworld was divided until the first Khan-created age took the throne, the Dragon King Onaga, who brought all of Outworld together under his fear and power. So a Khan is a king, more of a tyrant that cannot be opposed. When Outworld was put under his thumb, he set off to conquer other realms. Can you tell me what these realms are precisely? It is hard for me to put into words, but it is like many worlds occupying one space but never colliding, perfectly placed in their own safe zone. Like snow globes on a shelf. If that is how you want to think of it, then yes. But this is where we get to my people's creation, the Tarkatans. Please, go on. Onaga saw Outworlders' uniqueness and crossed them with something from another realm to make super soldiers, demons from the Nether Realm. Nether Realm. It wouldn't happen to go by any other names like Hell, would it? It's been described as such. I'll put that aside as a side note in the very important category. From the crossbreeding of these now extinct demons and the Outworlders came the Tarkatans. He would use us to invade and conquer other realms, until his lieutenant, the immortal Shao, poisoned and killed him, taking the title of Khan and any realms that Onaga had merged before. Merged realms. And what do you mean he's an immortal? This Shao character. Once every 100 years, one realm may challenge the other in a combative mortal combat. If one realm loses 10 times, that realm is merged with the victor. If the defenders win once, the counter is reset. As for Shao's species, he's a member of a race of creatures related to the elder gods, but only their immortality, allowing him to live on so long as he's never harmed, beyond repair. So he can be killed, it's just tricky. Indeed, over the millennia, Shao Kahn has merged several realms, the Dark Realm, the Light Realm, the Cave Realm, the Perfect Realm, the Bug Realm, the Lizard Realm, the Twin Realm, and more. How many realms are left? The Nether Realm, Dream Realm, Crystal Realm, Chaos Realm, Order Realm, and Earth Realm. He has his sights on Earth Realm as we speak. He has already won 9 times, and the 100-year mark is almost upon us. That's bad. What else can you tell me about Shao? He has great magic and strength, millennia of fighting experience, and many strong allies. Princess Kitana, her bodyguard Jade, and Scarlet are the 3 greatest assassins in our world. The general of his armies is Rikyo. His champion and prince of the Shokan is Goro. The Nether Realm sorcerer Imp. Is Quan Kai his advisor and right-hand man is the sorcerer Shang Tsung. You could have sounded more pleased saying his name. He sold me off to that psycho who infected me with that parasite. So, changing the subject, you mention elder gods. What are these? As their names imply, they are the first and original gods who created the system we abide by and the many different realms. Only demigods can counsel with them. But apart from that, little is known. Right. Let's end it there for now. Thank you again for agreeing to this and answering so many questions. I think I have more than enough and more than I bargained for. This is Dr. Izuku Midoriya signing off for now.